Good morning, all. We're going to start the meeting. Good morning. I'd like to call this meeting of the County Commission to order, please. May I have the roll call?
Vice Mayor Baxter.
Here.
Commissioner Flores.
Here.
Mayor Marino.
Here.
Commissioner Powell.
Here.
Commissioner Sachs. Commissioner Weiss.
Here.
Commissioner Woodward.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Bobby, I put the prayer book on at your seat. Would you lead us in the prayer and the pledge?
Head bows. Bowed. Dear God, we are meeting today to conduct matters of business for our community. Guide our hearts and our minds in the spirit of fairness. Impart your wisdom upon our activities so that our affairs may reach a successful conclusion. Thank you for being our source of guidance today. Amen. 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 To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And thank you, it's Commissioner Powell.
Thank you all. How do we deal with Commissioner Sachs's absence?
Yeah, they just say, is Commissioner Sachs available on the phone right now?
Yes, I am. I can hear everything.
Are you requesting to participate remotely due to extraordinary circumstances?
I am.
I'll make the motion to approve her to attend via phone.
May I have a second, please?
Thank you.
Second by Commissioner Flores. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. And at this time, do we have any?
Thank you, colleague.
Do we have any additions, deletions, or substitutions?
Mayor, good morning. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the board. We, on page 11, 3A1 is being deleted for further staff review. That concludes additions, deletions, and substitutions.
Thank you. May I get it?
Mayor, I'd like to move to adopt the agenda as amended.
Second.
So I have a first by Commissioner Weiss, a second by Vice Mayor Baxter. All in favor? Thank you. The agenda is adopted as amended. Now may I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
And a second? Did you get that? Okay, thank you. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. Now we'll go on to special presentations. And let's see, who's going first?
I believe Commissioner
Who wants to go
Woodward.
first? Commissioner Woodward. And then, Sarah, why don't you
I'll go last.
go last?
Good morning. Could I have Carrie Gale and Stephanie Shanoa? For the proclamation for Impaired Driving Awareness Month.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to, because it has to be.
So we are declaring December 2024 as Impaired Driving Awareness Month. Whereas it is important to recognize and honor those who have been killed, injured, or emotionally harmed from vehicle accidents caused by alcohol or substances that impair driving. And whereas in 2023, there were 2,320 drivers arrested in Palm Beach County for driving under the influence of alcohol or narcotics, 1,087 total crashes, 77 serious injuries, and 37 fatalities, all caused by impaired drivers. And whereas November and December are the deadliest months of the year for drunk driving vehicle accidents, Mothers Against Drunk Driving and Palm Beach County Public Safety Department's Victim Services Division are working to create a future of no more victims and free support services for victims and survivors. And whereas Mothers Against Drunk Driving and Palm Beach County Public Safety Department's Victim Services Division, you need a shorter name, will host a candlelight vigil on December 4th, you already had this, right? I'm sorry. Held on December 4th to honor victims and survivors. Whereas all citizens are urged to join the local efforts to raise awareness and to honor the lives of those killed or injured as a result of impaired driving. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners on Palm Beach County, Florida, assembled in regular session on this 10th day of December 2024, that December 2024 in Palm Beach County is hereby proclaimed Impaired Driving Awareness Month. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Woodward, and thank you to the board and Administrator Baker for all of your support for this program that we've had in place since 2017. I would like to recognize our DUI program coordinator, Carrie Gale. She's actually going to be leaving Palm Beach County, moving on to bigger and better things. December 20th is her last day. She's moving to Indiana. So we have definitely been grateful for her work here in Palm Beach County in the DUI program. So I'm honored to accept this proclamation on behalf of Public Safety and the dedicated members of the Impaired Driving Death Enhanced Assistance Task Force, which is also called IDEA. This recognition highlights our community's united effort and the unwavering commitment to supporting victims of DUI fatalities and serious injury crashes. Since 2017, our county's response program has evolved into a collaborative and compassion model. Through the IDEA Task Force, which includes the Public Safety Department, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, 8 law enforcement agencies, and the State Attorney's Office, we've significantly improved the response time to victims and their families by reducing it from an average of 250 days to just 72 hours. We have ensured that survivors receive the immediate support they need during their most challenging moments. This collaboration has not only enhanced our connection with the traffic homicide units with law enforcement agencies, but has also established compassionate death notification standards that benefit law enforcement, advocates, and survivors alike. In 2021, we were nationally recognized for our death notification training video, which is a true testament to the innovative and meaningful work our team continues to deliver. We're also proud of our advocacy and outreach efforts, from assisting families with funeral arrangements and legal advocacy to hosting DUI candlelight vigils, as we did last Wednesday, and engaging with youth in our local high schools. These initiatives are critical in raising awareness and fostering a culture where impaired driving is no longer tolerated. None of this would be possible without the dedication of our partners and the trust of our survivors we serve. Together we strive where there are no more victims of impaired driving, and we thank you for this proclamation today and recognizing our efforts. Thank you.
While they take pictures, I'm going to have Captain Turner, Lieutenant Sowers, Sergeant Gaudreau, Sanfilippo, and LeCaire come up, please, agents. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Good morning, everyone. Today we are declaring December 8th through the 14th as PBSO District 15 Street Crimes Unit Week. Whereas Agent Sergeant Gaudreau keeps our residents safe by responding to calls, then taking action by putting resources into place such as surveillance units and additional street team units, K-9 units, aviation units, to navigate dangerous situations. Whereas Agent Sergeant Gaudreau orchestrates play-by-play instructions for responding units to conduct arrests safely without incident and demonstrates the ability to maintain law and order in a professional and timely manner. Whereas Agent Timothy LeCaire long-term investigation skills has helped resolve a multitude of felony crimes which have led to multiple arrests involving stolen vehicles and firearms. Whereas Agent LeCare's long-term investigation into a multitude of felony crimes and cell phone search warrants led to the arrest of 2 felons with a total of 7 felony charges. He stopped 2 deadly teenagers that were recklessly shooting stolen firearms throughout the county. Whereas Agent Thomas Sanfilippo investigative skills led to multiple arrests, which stopped the chain of criminal activity that was occurring in multiple jurisdictions. His determination cleared active investigations via arrests without incident. Whereas Agent Sanfilippo puts himself at risk protecting the lives of our residents, his compassionate mindset led to him completing a Baker Act to get an individual with mental health disorders the care needed. Whereas, from the founding of this nation, law enforcement officers have played a critical role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms granted by the U.S. Constitution in protecting the lives and properties of our citizens. Whereas, the District 15 Street Crimes Unit performs their duties in a highly professional and dedicated manner through training and application of new procedures and techniques. These agents are leaders in effective law enforcement of our laws. Whereas District 15 Street Crimes Unit encounters daily exposure to hostile environments, including interactions with some of the most dangerous individuals in society. Whereas the District 15 Street Crimes Unit has made significant contributions to public safety, including 42 felony arrests, 47 misdemeanor arrests, 29 arrest warrants, 103 suspects arrested, 30 violations of probation arrests, 14 warrants and pickup orders, and 5 crimes in progress. Whereas the District 15 Crimes Unit is responsible for the protection and security of major community events, including Westlake Fourth Fest fireworks and festival operations, the Halloween of Citrus Grove operations, and the Loxahatchee Groves Veterans Day Parade, and the Indian Trails Improvement District Holiday Parade. Whereas it is fitting and proper to express our gratitude for the dedicated service and courageous deeds of our sheriff's agents. Now therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Palm Beach County, Florida, assembled in regular session on this 10th day of December 2024, that December 8th through the 14th, 2024 in Palm Beach County is hereby proclaimed PBSO District 15 Street Crimes Unit Agent Sergeant Burke Gaudreau Week, also Timothy LeCare Week, and Sanfilippo Week. Thank you, boys.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Baxter.
Thank you. Catherine, would you like to say something?
I'd just like to say that Sergeant Gaudreau and his agents make me look good on a daily basis. I appreciate everything they do. They go above and beyond every time we've asked them to do anything, so it's highly appreciated, all the work that they do. So thank you.
Okay, while they take their pictures, could I have Connie Siskowski, Delma Bennett, Rashawn Etienne, Milka Santos, Amoy Gordon, and Bina Martin, and any others that are here for the Family Caregivers Month proclamation. All right, thank you. So today we are declaring December 2024 as Family Caregivers Month. Whereas in the United States, more than 5.4 million children and teenagers aged 18 or younger provide significant assistance or care to family members with illnesses, disabilities, mental health conditions, or frailty due to aging. And whereas the American Association of Caregiving Youth, founded in 1998 in Boca Raton, Florida, has been at the forefront of addressing the needs and challenges faced by this large hidden population for over 18 years. Whereas AACY offers direct services to Palm Beach County middle and high school students and their families of all ethnicities, countries of origin, income levels, gender identification, health conditions, sexual orientation, marital status, and religions. And whereas the county has a vulnerable population, as over 24% are 65 years of age or older, nearly 60,000 have Alzheimer's disease, more than 6,000 children have disabilities, and close to 20,000 grandparents are living with their grandchildren. Whereas, although family caregiving can be a rewarding experience, it often comes with increased risk for health issues from chronic stress, lack of time to take care of oneself, fewer social relationships, reduced hours of employment, and increased demands on financial resources. And whereas the Palm Beach County Family Caregiving Respite Committee, led by the United Way of Palm Beach County, recognizes that family caregivers of all ages deserve to have periodic relief from their responsibilities and are acknowledged and appreciated for their compassionate care they provide throughout our communities. Now therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Palm Beach County, Florida, assembled in regular session on this 10th day of December 2024, that December 2024 in Palm Beach County is therefore proclaimed Family Caregivers Month. Thank you.
Thank you so much to all on the County Commission. You know, it wasn't until 2006, when we began this work with students in Palm Beach County, that the county and the school district took a risk, because this is the first program in the country that has been dedicated to this population of students in middle and high schools. So any of you who have been family caregivers know the stress and the challenges that can go with it. And for students, they must learn. And it's really interesting that, you know, our country, our county, everywhere has been focused on DEI, and yet caregiving youth are excluded. They're excluded from the benefits that are awarded to family caregivers because they're not yet 18 years old. So I really thank you all for recognizing this population and our ongoing need to support them. This past year, we've served over 600 middle and high school students in Palm Beach County, more than 3,000 since we began, and it's really made a difference with our high school average 10-year graduation rate of 98.3%. And it can only be done with the support of our team, such as with Rashane Etienne, who is the Assistant Project Director in the North area, and Dilma Bennett, who is our Development Director, along with our whole team. So we thank you so much for this recognition and for honoring caregiving youth in our county and beyond.
So it's always my pleasure to talk about something fun. And we are doing a certificate of appreciation to Loggerhead Marine Life. So may I have Andy DeHart, the Executive Director, and Ray Graziato, Board Member. Also, Tammy Fields, are you in? Tammy, Jennifer Cirillo, and Paul Connell from our Parks and Rec Department. So for some of you that might have been at our State of the County this morning, we did a little shout out to Loggerhead Marine Life as the number one tourist attraction here in our county. But why we're gathered here today and we're doing this certificate of appreciation is because Loggerhead Marine Life Center has been named the top free attraction in the United States, in the USA Today 2024 10 Best Readers' Choice Awards. The center offers free exhibits and programs to the public every day, hosting more than 300,000 visitors every year. And we're fortunate to have this top-notch facility right here in Palm Beach County, and I'm fortunate enough to have you all in my district. So with that, we're going to present this certificate of appreciation to you on this 10th day of December from the Board of County Commissioners. Andy, you want to say something?
Sure.
Oh, I love your turtle time.
Of course. So for 40 years, we've been happy to operate here in Palm Beach County as a free, no admission fee attraction. But I'd be remiss to say we couldn't do that without Palm Beach Parks and Rec. We've got our partners here, not our collaborators here. They truly are partners, and we are going to, in turn, you can't really say thank you for a thank you, but we're going to do that. We're going to offer this plaque to Parks and Rec for the amazing work and partnership they have with us at Loggerhead Marine Life Center. So, wasn't totally fair. And Maria, thank you so much for all your partnership and collaboration over the years and your faith and trust in what we do. We focus on rehabilitation, research, conservation, and education. It's incredibly important work, but more importantly, we get to see 300,000 guests every year do that. So thank you.
time, we're going to do one picture with our honored guests here. Today, we're going to call them our men in green.
I always forget it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks again for your service. Thank you again.
Yeah. Okay, that's always the fun part of the meeting. Now on to the public hearings. May I get a motion to receive and file, please?
So moved.
Second.
Did you get that? Thank you very much. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay. We are going to have Palm Tran. Would anyone like a presentation? Seeing no requests for a presentation, while you came up, got your little bit of exercise. I think we're good. So, staff recommends a motion to approve 5A1, A, B, C, D, and E. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? No lights are on. No
Mayor?
discussion. Motion, and,
Sorry, could I just, there were two people I heard make the motions.
I'm sorry. Commissioner Weiss made the motion, Commissioner Baxter made the second. Correct? Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? See that it carries. Commissioner Sachs, can you hear us? See that it carries 6-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, now on to the regular agenda. 6A1. I'm sorry? 6A1, airports. Does anyone need a presentation on the parking?
Nope.
No, nope.
If we could just speak about the future of the valet parking, I think it'd be nice for the public to know what's coming.
Sure, okay. So we have item 6A1, and please, brief.
Okay. Do you want a full presentation or just talk about valet
No.
parking? So we're proposing establishing rates as part of this resolution for valet parking. The rate would go from 30
Laura, pull the microphone towards you.
Sorry. As part of this resolution, we're proposing to establish rates for valet parking. We anticipate implementing that sometime early next year. There's equipment that we still need to purchase, so we'll be bringing an agenda item back with our parking contractor for the purchase of equipment, and we also need to have management of the valet services, so we're negotiating a contract for that as well. The cost to provide out valet services is about $500,000 a year, so we're proposing the rates be between starting at 36, ultimately going up to 39, which will keep them lower than Miami, but higher than Fort Lauderdale, and that's primarily to make sure that we're breaking even. We think the break-even point is going to be about $39 per day. So we're proposing starting in a little bit lower, but then working our way up to the break-even point. So that's our recommendation for valet services. And like I said, I think we'll be bringing that back sometime, maybe March or April of next year.
Thank you. Commissioner Powell, do you have a question?
Thank you, Mayor. I've got a couple questions, if that's okay. Can you go over, and we have it in our backup, but just for the people who are watching and may want a public record, and it's not a full presentation, just the changes in range, and this is over 5 years of what we will get up to in terms of pricing. And then when you go back into the pilot program, can you explain a little bit more in detail in terms of what the pilot looks like? And you said $39 would make us break even. We had this conversation between us. I believe that if someone is paying for what valet service is ultimately super premium, if we're going to offer that service, whatever it would take so that we would break even the initial year is something that I think we should kind of consider, because we shouldn't be losing money on people who, obviously, if they are valeting their car, most of the time they can afford it. So can you, if you don't mind, just going back and showing those rates of what we're going from, and in comparison to our neighbors to the south?
Happy to do that. So based on a review of other airport parking rate structures, we're proposing implementing base increases over a period of 5 years, which provide for additional incremental revenue on our rates comparable for parking facilities, for other airport parking facilities at or below the current rates for peer airports. And due to the fact that our premium and short-term facilities are regularly exceeding capacity, I don't know if any of you tried to find a space in short-term parking and finding the garage is closed, because the rate is so low, it's causing long-term parkers to actually park in our short-term facilities. So we are proposing higher increases for the premium and short-term rates, so that those products truly are more short-term parkers. We're proposing to increase the premium from $30 to $34 next year, and ultimately up to $38 by 2030. It's important to note that our premium slot is completely unique compared to other airports. It's designated in front of the terminal. There are other comparable facilities at Fort Lauderdale or Miami. Short-term will increase from $17 a day to $21 next year, which is $15 less than Fort Lauderdale's current rate, and to $25 by 2030, which is $11 lower than Fort Lauderdale's current rate. So we're still keeping our rates very reasonable. Long-term will increase from 13 to 14 next year, which is $6 less than Fort Lauderdale's current rate, and to 16 by 2030, which is $4 less than Fort Lauderdale's current rate. Economy will increase from $7 to $8 next year, and to $10 by 2030. Fort Lauderdale does not really have an economy lot. They have a temporary overflow lot that they open.
Laura, I've gotten a notice that people can't hear you.
Sorry, am I not? Okay. Do you want me to repeat?
Much better. Can you give a synopsis?
Okay.
Let's just say that the prices are going up, but it is reflective of our service, and it's also in competition with the other airports.
And it will, and you can see from the chart, it'll be significantly lower than the current rates for existing facilities at other airports. And I don't assume that they will not be raising their rates over the next 5 years. So you can see that we will still be very reasonable in rates. We do have a couple of premium products that other airports do not have, so we can't really comp against those facilities for the other airports. So we are proposing that those rates go up a little bit quicker. Valet parking, like I mentioned, we're proposing the rate would start at 36 and increase to 39. I know that there's been some discussion about, making sure that we're breaking even initially and proposing the rate at 39 or 40. I would be supportive of that. Because it's a new service, we're proposing starting it at a lower rate just to get people used to the new service. The service would be provided out of the short-term garage, and it would be by reservation only, so that the valet company isn't collecting cash within the garage, and that's really from a accounting standpoint, just to be cognizant that we don't want cash changing hands. So,
Commissioner Powell, does that answer your question?
It does. I have another question.
Go right ahead.
It's called a pilot program. How long will this pilot be tested, or is there a sunset date if it's not successful? What does success look like?
So we would want to at least break even on the valet services and that they are regularly used. So we would evaluate it after the first year. I would propose continuing with the current management contract with valet services if it is successful through the end of the contract, which is another, I believe, 3 years. If it's not successful, I would propose that we stop providing the service after a year. We can come back and reevaluate. We're also proposing to add reservation services, which allows you to make a reservation in the garage facility. There's a service charge associated with it. It guarantees you a spot within that facility, but not a specific space. I think because of the convenience of the short-term garage, we're probably going to see people adopting reservations, probably more than valet services, but there wasn't a desire to test valet services at the airport, so this will allow us to do that and find out whether it's successful or not.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Flores.
One more question.
Oh, sorry.
Mayor.
I thought you were done.
Economy parking goes from $7 to $8. Where is economy parking located in terms of where the terminals are and
So economy parking is located almost adjacent to the terminal facility, which is very unique compared to other airports. Immediately adjacent to the building is our employee and flight crew parking, but economy from certain spots is walkable to the terminal. So we have also the most convenient economy parking option as well.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Flores. Actually, your economy parking is what used to be your original parking. I think I parked there like in 1985. I'm going back a ways. Commissioner Flores.
So just 2 quick points. The first one, I love the reserve idea, so I love that coming to Palm Beach County. The other one is sort of echoing Commissioner Powell's question. Why are we starting a program that is a super premium, as he referred to it, at where we're not even breaking even, where it's a super premium? I would be in favor of starting this program at the break-even point. So if that's the $39, I would be in favor of that. And that way the pilot can actually be successful, because we're always going to be chasing that break-even point. Right. If we start under, I think you had it at 36. So we're $3 under right now. Mm-hmm. And this is a 3-year, and expenses only go up. So we're always going to be chasing that. Right. So I would be in favor of starting that valet park at 39.
Thank you. Done? Okay. Commissioner Woodward.
Thank you, Mayor. I did have one question on the valet. How many spaces are we expecting, or reservations are we allowing?
We're starting with about 40 spaces. We can obviously increase or decrease based on the popularity of the product, but we're talking about 40 spaces to start.
Okay. I would be inclined to agree with my fellow commissioners on starting out wherever we need to be. And, with 40 spaces, you'll be able to tell us pretty quickly within a year on how that's looking. So I would be in favor of that too.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Baxter.
If I could, Mayor?
Commissioner Sachs, would you like to be recognized?
Sure. Go ahead and have Commissioner Baxter, and then I'll say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sachs. I agree. I like the idea of starting at the break-even point. Just a question, is there any reason you could see that would not be a good thing to do?
Valet parking?
No, starting at the break-even point, the $39.
Honestly, due to the fact that our premium parking is regularly full and people will park there as long-term parkers, I think that it's not going to prevent certain, people who want to valet at the airport. And it is a premium service. So I honestly believe that $39 per day it won't be cost prohibitive.
And I believe Fort Lauderdale is like 50.
So right now they're at 30, they're advertised,
For
but
valet?
Miami is 39.
Oh, okay. Well, still, we're right there. Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you.
Commissioner Sachs.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to congratulate Laura Beebe. We've been discussing this issue of parking at PBI, and I'm very favorable as to what the other commissioners have said about the price. All this goes to show how PBI is growing, and we're keeping pace with our neighbors to the south. And I absolutely agree with with what the other commissioners are saying with regard to the price. But this is an issue that Laura Beebe has been studying for a while, and I do appreciate it. And I look forward to a vote on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I see no more lights on.
I'd make a motion to
Perfect. I have a motion.
adopt with the new, with the $39 would be the only
valet.
change. Yes.
In a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I have a second from Vice Mayor Baxter. Any more discussion? I would like to say that I do agree. We should be starting at 39. No sense in starting behind. And it is a premium service, and people have been asking for it. And so if you're, lots of them. So I look forward to this. So we have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you
Aye.
very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we are going to move on to regular agenda item 6B1, Facilities, Development and Operations. Staff is looking for a motion to approve. Does anyone need a presentation on the Atlantic Commons PUD, the civic site parcel located within it? No? All right. May I have a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
So I have a first from Vice Mayor, a second from Commissioner Flores. Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Thank you. Motion carries 7-0. All right, moving on to 6C1. And before I go on, make sure we have cards. Okay, good. We have some cards. Don't want to skip people if we have cards. All right. Staff presentation, 6C1. Would anybody like a staff presentation?
I would like a staff presentation.
Okay, thank you. We are going to have a staff presentation on 6C1.
Vice Mayor, Mayor, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Sure. Hi, Jonathan Brown, Department of Housing Economic Development. I have with me to my right Sherry Howard. I have Jeff Bolton, and we have Howard Falcon, county attorneys. To my left, Carlos Serrano, Housing Economic Development, and Tammy Fields, our assistant county administrator. Thank you for the opportunity to be before you today. So the first item we're bringing before you is a project funding request for Habitat for Humanity. Staff is recommending that we approve Home Investment Partnership Funds, our federal dollars, as a CHODO, a community housing development organization for Habitat in the amount of $1.88 million. The funds will be used for two things: construction costs of the units as well as operating funds. This project will create 11 new for-sale single-family homes in Lake Worth Beach, Lantana, and South Bay. Homes will be sold to those whose incomes do not exceed 80% of the area median income. The project is looking to start fast. There will be an affordability period of no less than 30 years on the units once they're sold. And we're looking at a interest-free deferred loan to Habitat to create these units. And the county assistance is there at 53.23%.
Wonderful. I don't see any lights on. Commissioner Flores.
I'm fumbling over here.
That's okay. It takes a little while getting used to.
Could you explain what the operating funds and how those are used?
Yes. So as a community housing development organization, or a CHODO, as they apply for dollars, we provide the dollars for construction, but then we also provide operating dollars for the organization. Typically, what you'll see in terms of operating dollars, instead of the developer charging a developer fee that goes into the construction costs, we use allowable operating dollars that really kind of supplements or replaces a developer fee.
And how do they use that? What's the usage of in their end?
Typically, any of the operating costs of the organization. So any of the eligible costs, staffing, any eligible operating costs for the Habitat.
Excellent. And these they're scattered throughout Palm Beach County, 11. These are a homeowner program.
Yes, sir. Homeowners at 80% or below the area median income.
I love that.
Excellent. Love it. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Commissioner Powell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Brown, with regard to the 30-year period for the affordability period, what, and I guess I'm trying to say that 30-year affordability period, it prevents the homeowner, if they purchase the home, from any economic benefit if they do decide after 15 years to sell the home. So after 15 years, they have lived there and maybe have been able to lift themselves up a little bit. There's no amortization from that 30-year period. It's a complete 30-year that it has to be at that affordability rate. Is there anything that we have on the books that allows those individuals who are trying to become upwardly mobile to take part in the success of a program as they participate? Because a 30-year time period is, I know most mortgages are either 30 years or 15 years, but I even believe at the 15-year period, if they have an opportunity to build some equity in a home that they're living in, it allows them to gain a stronger foothold in the economy. Is there any tool that we have in housing that would allow that? Or is this 30 years just blanket there and it passes on to the next family member, or if it's sold? Just can you explain that to me and the people in the audience?
Yes, sir, Commissioner. So typically for the state and federal programs, when we're providing anything that ends in like a down payment assistance, which this will, after the dollars are used toward construction, then we'll convert some of those over to a loan that could serve as down payment assistance. With the state dollars, it's typically 30 years, the same thing with the federal. We have two options when we do that. We can have a recapture provision, meaning that when the individual sells, all of the money provided comes back to the county, or we can have a resale provision, meaning that when the home is sold, it has to be sold to an income eligible person. Typically, we're looking at recapture. One of the items we'll discuss later, which this is going to kind of fall up under HUD item, home, we're talking about resale because HUD has a way of wanting that once we give monies to a developer, they create units that are going to be sold. Depending on what that nexus is between sales price and value, they would rather have a resale provision. So this would have a resale provision, if I'm not mistaken on that, Carlos.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
No further.
Okay. Oh, we're going to go back to Commissioner Flores.
Just one quick question. So a person lives there for 15 years, we do the recapture, it stays affordable, and that only lasts for 30 years?
So
What happens to the second homeowner? He gets to sell the house at year 31 at market value?
When we exercise or we put in the project a recapture provision, once the individual sells the home, the money comes back, restriction is gone. When we do a resale provision, which this will ultimately be a resale provision, it's going to remain affordable for 30 years. And then if the individual sells the home sooner, they need to sell it to someone who is at least 80% or below the area median income. So it remains an affordable unit. And if that next buyer needs assistance, then we're going to put another 30-year restriction on for that next buyer.
But I think what you may be asking is, does the 30-year time clock start again?
It will start again on a resale provision if the new buyer needs more assistance.
Okay.
And same thing on a recapture. If the new buyer needs more down payment assistance, they'll apply. The 30-year period starts over fresh for them.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Baxter.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. So what happens if they sell, and just wrapping this all up, what happens if they sell it 15 years?
They can sell it at 15 years. If there is a resale provision, they need to sell it to someone who meets the income requirements. So they're going to have to make sure the sales price is at a level.
Forgive me. What happens to the equity in the home?
If they're selling it if they're doing a recapture provision, they can sell it at market rate.
Are we talking about recapture right now or resale?
This is resale. And
So what happens to the equity at the resale?
Then it's going to ultimately go to the person who can afford the new sales price. So we're giving them the down payment assistance, which creates the equity, which makes it affordable for them to get in. Without the county's assistance up front, they would never be in these homes.
But isn't the point of assistance to try to help people continue to move upward?
That's the point of assistance, and so the challenge that we're faced when we're dealing, especially with a project where you're giving monies to a CHOTO to construct and then sell, is HUD is mandating a resale provision. We don't have an option.
No, I like the idea of resale. I just want to make sure that we're also not just accomplishing some affordable housing, but also helping people do better.
Again, as it's understood.
So, and I believe that Commissioner Weiss actually has a different take on the equity of this, so I'd like to hear from him if that's okay, Mayor.
I'm going to ask Commissioner Woodward, who piped in first, and then I'll go to Commissioner
I think it was
Weiss.
only because it was in reference to the equity question, but up to you.
Mine is too.
Yeah, so go ahead, Commissioner.
My
Woodward.
comment is on the equity question too. Because, and this is why for sale is a tricky area for us, because we are providing, this is taxpayer subsidized, whether it comes from HUD or whoever, this is taxpayer subsidized housing. And so it is a tricky area on what happens with the equity. And for this, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't there some part where whatever they've paid in, or there's like a percentage along the way that when they sell it, it's an increase. It's not going to necessarily go to market, but there is something that they get out of the sale, because the new AMI price will dictate what the new home sale price is. And so that difference, the original homeowner will get. Am I correct?
Correct, because again, the max 80% AMI income now may be $40,000.
Right.
When they come to sell it, it may be $80,000. So absolutely, there's a difference then in sales price based on AMI. But I don't know what that will be, and so that's why I say they're going to have to sell it to someone who meets the criteria of the 80% AMI, and then we can determine what the equity is at that point.
And the 80% AMI is what dictates the price on the resale.
Yes.
So there is equity that will be involved, but because this is, again, to keep these homes affordable, it is subsidized by taxpayers. There's a limited equity, but there is still equity that would come with this.
There's equity that come with it. We just don't know what that amount will be. We don't know what it will sell for. We don't know what that AMI will be. And for instance, year 15, we just don't know. So I don't know what that amount would be.
Thank you.
But they'll have something there.
Commissioner Weiss.
Thank you, and I think that, Commissioner, you just nailed it. It is, they will have that equity. They'll also have, if, let's say they're there for 15 years, they'll have built up whatever pay down in capital on the loan. That'll be returned to them as well. So there's a couple things there. It is capped, though. The equity is capped. But if the house originally sold for $250 and they come back 15 years later and eligible is $350, they'll pick up that $100,000 plus whatever pay down on the loan. So.
Thank you. Oh, we have a
I have a
card.
question.
We do.
Hold on one second.
sorry.
Commissioner Sachs, do you have a question?
Right. Yes, I do have a question. And this is to Mr. Brown. Who administers these issues and who enforces them? And is there any oversight by the county or your department?
Thank you, Commissioner. So this is a partnership between the county and Habitat. And so Habitat would be the developer that would actually build the units. The county would be the one that's reimbursing the eligible costs for construction and operating, and then the county will ensure compliance with the federal rules as well as the agreements throughout.
And I appreciate the questions by my colleagues because I think they're on point. This has worked before, so we should have an idea of how this equity on these houses has worked before to, I'm sure, a great success. Mr. Brown?
Again,
not our first rodeo on we're working with HUD for these houses, yes. I'm sure. And so we could, I'm sure it's public what Habitat for Humanity or any organization has done with the taxpayers' money.
Yes, ma'am. The county has been administering this program for many, many years, so it'll work similar. It's just, again, we won't know how much equity is there until the individual homeowner wants to sell.
Okay. I think these questions are on point because we all know that houses we buy for $250, as Commissioner Weiss mentioned, after 15 years, there's going to be quite a bit of equity in there. And so it's very helpful to know who administers it, who develops it, and at the end of the day, it's the county. And I appreciate that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner. Ms. Baker?
Over the years that this program has been in existence, a majority of our participants usually move in and they don't necessarily move out within that period of time. They're in there for a very long time. We've had the opportunity to work with some of their descendants who meets the criteria as well. And so a lot of these units is passed down to the children that are eligible. So we don't have a proliferation of turnovers. As soon as they move in, they then sell and move on. The majority of them stay in there for a very long period of time.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thanks.
I do have some cards, so go right ahead.
Drew Martin.
Drew Martin. I'm here on behalf of the Loxahatchee Group of the Sierra Club. However, I don't think the Sierra Club supports affordable housing, and so we commend the program. However, I do have some questions, which I know you won't be able to answer, but I'll direct them to the mayor anyway. One is, why don't we just take the money that's the profit and give it back to Habitat for Humanity to build more housing? Right? You know, you're giving somebody a good deal so they have a place to live. Why do they need to make money off of that? So I'm not really sure, you know, particularly in this county where we have a lot of problems with affordable housing. Why only 30 years? We think at the end of 30 years, everybody's going to be a millionaire and we're not going to need affordable housing? That's my next question. And then I wonder, is 250 a little high? Even with 80%, a lot of people are not going to be able to afford that. Should we consider something less expensive if it's being paid for 100%? Why does it have to be 250? And what does that need? Is there a need to make money? Or why not just make it much less so that even less wealthy people could buy that? So anyway, I don't know if you can answer those, but I appreciate having the opportunity to say something. Sorry we won't have public comment today, but.
Thank you. All right. No more cards? May I have a motion and a second, please?
Motion.
Second.
Got that? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Thank you very much. Okay, now we are on to item 6C2. This is the staff is recommending a motion to approve revised impact fee affordable housing assistance program guidelines. Does anyone need a presentation? Seeing none. Would you like to make a motion, or do we have cards?
You know what,
Oh, you have a
Madam
question. Yep.
Mayor, as a
Yes,
matter of
sir.
fact, can we get a presentation?
Sure. Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner. So today we're bringing forward a request to make revisions to the impact fee affordable housing program. This program offers interest earned from parks, roads, a number of different categories to developers to support the development of affordable housing. The revisions that we're looking at are consistent to directions we've received from the board on items that we've recently brought. So the first one, we're looking to increase the affordability period to no less than 30 years. Typically, when we are talking to developers, we look to negotiate, at least 30 years, if not longer, on the affordability period. Then what we want to do as the board establish for the housing bond, decrease the maximum area median income to 110%. And then the last bullet there, what we had noticed is that sometimes some developers will make rental increases during the term of the lease, and we wanted to establish a policy through the board where there cannot be any increases in rent until lease renewal. And so again, staff is asking to approve those changes to the impact fee program. Additionally, we're wanting to clarify that units that meet the county's workforce housing program obligation are not eligible for impact fee assistance. They're already receiving bonuses and other incentives. We wanted to eliminate the ability to buy out of the affordability period. So if we put an affordability period on there, developer decides, well, we just rather pay you off to get rid of the restriction after they've already developed a home. We're requesting that we remove that ability and then require a penalty payment in the event of default while continuing to preserve affordability.
Thank you for spelling that out. Does anyone have any questions? Commissioner Powell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Brown, this is to, as you indicated, to preserve affordability. Just for us, this would be reducing the area median income from 140% to 110% for eligibility. Just for that, what is the current area median income that would be increased to or decreased from 140 to 110?
We're going to pull that up for you, Commissioner. And at the 140% AMI, depending on the number of bedrooms in the unit, will actually determine, what those rental rates are. Depending on the household size, will determine a lot in terms of those rates. And so we're just trying to get it as consistent as we can to the board's direction on the housing bond, which then, most of the times we hear that, those at 140% are close to market rate. And so what we're trying to do is make sure that the dollars that are being provided by the county are going to those that are not that close to what could be considered market rate, especially when we take a look at the rents that are allowed at those levels, and you see rents over $3,000, $3,500. So we're trying to make sure we keep it consistent with the direction the board has provided on the housing bond.
Thank you. Would that be Florida Housing Finance's number, which is, so that's 104,000, and at a 10% or at 110% of area median income, that would put that at about 114,400, right? Yes. So affordability, especially for rental units, if you're looking at 30% of total income of the 114,000, would end up being around $2,080 a month.
Depending on the number of bedrooms within the unit, yes, sir.
All right, thank you. That's what I was trying to work through in my head. Okay, no further questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Woodward.
Thank you, Mayor. And sorry, I stepped out for a second, but I just wanted to thank you for adding the language prohibiting the rental increases. This, I guess, was recently brought to our attention that as soon as the new AMI numbers come out, I guess it's usually April or May, a number of these properties have given rent increases, even if someone just signed a lease the month before. So everywhere that this can be added, and anything that we assist, thank you for adding this and making sure, until we can get a change made in Tallahassee, we need to add this in every single property that we can. So thank you for that.
We're doing that across the board immediately once it came to our attention that this was occurring, because it was resulting in some people having to move out after 2 months and all of the expenses that are associated with moving, utilities and the like. So we adopted that right away.
Thank you. Commissioner Flores.
Yeah, I just want to ask staff that when we do presentations, especially in a public forum, and we use any percentages for AMI, that we put the dollar value right next to it so that we understand, because I understand that for rental is one number, but yet if you're home ownership, it's a different number. So if we can start in these presentations, I know a lot of people at home don't quite understand what these numbers, percentages mean. We can do that. I think that will help people understand what we're talking about up here. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Anyone have any more questions? Seeing none.
I do. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, go right ahead, Commissioner Sachs.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Who determines, two questions really. Who determines the location of these units? That is, what cities or municipalities, locations are we going to be putting taxpayer money into? And secondly, who administers and enforces these issues? I know Commissioner Woodward brought up a very good point, and I know that you're filling in those gaps, Tammy and Jonathan. But is that your department that administers and enforces this? And do you have enough means to do so? Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sachs. So yes, we ensure that the funds are made available to developers, and we ensure the compliance requirements for HUD and that the contractual requirements for the county are followed. But the developer decides on location, and they bring that via some sort of proposal, some sort of request, and we ultimately present that to the board for a decision.
So in other words, if a developer says, I'd like to have these units built in a certain location, we will have the final say-so on that, the Board of County Commissioners, sir.
The board will have say regarding the funding that's being provided, and then I would imagine whatever government controls the zoning would have a decision on whether the property is zoned appropriately for what that project is attempting to do.
In what county, when you say government department, that's pretty broad. Are you talking about federal, state, county? I want to know, the question really comes down to who determines the location of these, because we need affordable housing everywhere in this county.
Yes.
And I'm just trying to understand exactly who determines the location, sir.
That's a great question, Commissioner. So the developer will determine the location. If it's in Lake Worth Beach and it's within their municipal limits, then they'll determine whether or not the housing that the developer wants to bring forward is doable for that site. If it's an unincorporated Palm Beach County, then the Board of County Commissioners or through PZB would determine if housing is that property, that site is zoned appropriately.
Commissioner Sachs, if I may, this is Vice Mayor. I want to add something to your comment. I think what Commissioner Sachs is going at is the dollars are staying within the county.
Yes.
Does that help answer your question?
No, it doesn't. I know that, no, but thank you. It's a good point, Mayor. I appreciate it. What I'm looking at is this. We have, and I have been to that ribbon breaking at Prosperity Farms. I just would like to see a little more review by the Board of County Commissioners, because we represent the 7 districts, as to location sites for some of these, just so that we have more of a say-so in where these units will be built, since it's our taxpayers' money. And I'm sure that maybe Jonathan and Tammy, you could come back to us with that possibility of looking at what municipality we would be focusing on for these affordable units. Is that possible, Jonathan and Tammy?
Yes, we can do that.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
That's it.
Okay, do we have any cards? We have no cards. May I get a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
I'm sorry, we had a motion from Commissioner Woodward. We had a second by Commissioner Powell. We have a dedicated phone line with a cord right here with Commissioner Weiss, so pardon us for a little humor here. Is there any more discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
See that the motion carries 7-0. Thank you for the humor. All right, we're going to move on to item 6C, 3A, and B, which is also Housing and Economic Development. Staff is recommending a motion to approve a budget transfer of roughly $215,000 from the Housing Initiative Fund to the Home Investment Partnership Act Fund, and then a budget amendment to realize that fund moving. Any members of the board want a presentation? Seeing none, may I have a motion?
So moved.
So I have a motion from the Vice Mayor, a second from Commissioner Woodward. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. See that it carries 7-0. Moving on to items 6C, 4A, and B. Staff is recommending a motion to approve a GEO Housing Bond Loan Program Workforce Housing Multifamily Development Award to Rickman Lake Worth Apartments in the amount of $13 million, and then authorize the county administrator to execute the loan agreement. And would anybody like a presentation? Yes, ma'am. Okay, we have a yes. So staff, would you be so kind as to give us a presentation?
Absolutely. Commissioners, we've had a number of conversations regarding the housing bond that the voters approved via referendum, and the board ultimately adopted policies and procedures. And so here you'll see a timeline of that and when RFPs were issued for the housing bond. To date, there have been 12 total projects presented to the board. 6 are workforce rental projects, 5 are affordable rental projects, and then there was 1 for sale. To date, we've brought back to the board 1 for sale project that the board has approved and 2 affordable projects. Certain parameters that the board preferred that we work within, and so we have done that. And when the projects came back to the board in June, they came back to the board with those parameters in mind: a 15% cap, which was preferred, and then the AMI max at 110% for the program. So this particular project, we have received the conceptual approval from the board. We then submitted this project to the underwriters. The underwriters came back with a favorable review of the project. A couple highlights of this project: it's a $13 million bond request with an affordability period of 50 years. Project's located in Lake Worth Beach. We have 195 units, all of which are going to be under 110% AMI, with certain number of units under 80%. The total bond assistance per unit for this project is just over $79,000, and the cap on this particular one is at 19%. And today, because this project has passed underwriting and it met the conceptual approval requirements of the board, we're requesting that the board approve this final approval for this housing bond item.
Thank you. And I see Commissioner Woodward, your light is on.
Thank you, Mayor. Couple of questions on this one. In the backup, I went and looked where the size of the units, and since we've been discussing the 110 AMI, my first question, of the one-bedroom units, 6 of them are at the 80% mark, 99 are at 110. And then for the 2 bedrooms, it's 8 units at 80%, 77 at 110. All of the 3-bedroom units are at the 110 mark. Reason this is important is because of the dollar amount of the rents. We're looking at the 1-bedroom, which is 600 square feet, actually just under, it's 598 square feet. It's $2,100 a month. My question, because this is in Lake Worth Beach, and I was trying to kind of gauge like what's the market rate in that area for apartments, looks like we're pretty close to market rate on some of these. And what happens if we can't rent these units, or they can't rent these units at these prices? The 2-bedroom is 845 square feet, it's $2,500 a month. The 3-bedroom is $3,000 a month. If we can't rent them, do they drop down to a lower workforce number, or can they then just go to market and rent them to whoever?
Great question, Commissioner. So the maximum AMI that we provide, it's a maximum. So the developer can always rent it for lower rent, lower AMIs. They just cannot exceed the 80% units or the 110% AMI on the units that are there.
So if they can't rent them, they will have to reduce their prices.
They will reduce their prices, or those units will be vacant until they find an eligible tenant.
Okay, so I just wanted to clarify that there is no way, if they come back and say, we have all these vacant units that we can't rent, we have to be able to allow non-workforce applicants to apply.
And in the housing bond program, that's prohibited. So they're not going to be able to do that for any of the county-assisted units.
Well, I know that this has made it through underwriting, and we've approved so far. I'm not going to oppose this project, but I encourage our next round. I know that we lowered it to the AMI, or the 110 AMI, but the majority, I think it's 90% of these units are at the max allowed number, and we need more of a mix. And so moving forward, as the next round of this comes out, these are, we're using bond dollars to pay for this. And, having all of these, I can't say for sure what the market is in Lake Worth, but these have got to be pretty close to market rate there. And, that's not what, I don't believe that this was the intent of this program. So allowing some 110 at the cap, but not 90%. So I won't oppose this right now, but this is something we definitely need to consider on the next round.
And Commissioner, we will be bringing a workshop item to you in January to discuss what parameters the board wants to see when we issue the next round. So we'll take note of that now, and that'll be part of the discussion when we come forward in January at the workshop.
Thank you. And I do agree with what Commissioner Flores was asking, putting the 110 percentage points on here when we're not actually saying, what's the size of the unit, how many bedrooms, what's the actual rent. Like, those are really the important numbers and what we're talking about with affordability. 110% AMI, it really doesn't. We have to dig to find these numbers, and this needs to be like front and center. How much are the rents going to be?
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
thank you.
We can do that. And if I can add, in addition to the workshop item that Tammy just mentioned, we have been working with FIU on a 10-year and a current year affordable housing study. And one of the things that they're going to do is tell us the percentage or number of units we need by AMI. So the board will get an opportunity to discuss that report, see which AMIs need the housing units, and then provide direction as we issue, whether it's a bond RFP or any RFP, on the appropriate breakdown or percentages.
And the housing study will be right before the housing allocation process, so you'll be able to see that snapshot first.
Thank you. Any other questions? Commissioner Flores.
I do. Okay. When you're done, Mayor, I'll say a few words. Thank you.
So I echo the sentiments of Commissioner Woodward. This money has already been allocated from the bond. We've already gone out, and the bond's money's already sitting there, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. When you and I spoke a week and a half ago, you brought up to me a concern that you think that there's some projects that might not be moving forward. And that's a concern to me too, because I was thinking we're going to be putting all of these units out in the street soon, but yet there's some hurdles. One of the hurdles is that a lot of these applicants applied for SHIP dollars, sale dollars. Sorry, I get my acronyms confused. But yet they only award one project a year, maybe a second. So can you, I know we're talking about one specific item right now, but there's a few out there that might not be coming forward, and that's a concern to me. And so I want to see this next round, hopefully we'll be more robust, and I look forward to the workshop. But right now, I think the council, the commission previously had put that 15%. This is a little bit over. So if we have to look at that, then that's something that we have to look at. But it's a little bit outside of what the board had already approved, although this was in the first round. I think that was implemented thereafter. But I completely agree with everything that Commissioner Woodward said, and I want to see those type of projects and more of a mixed use. And once again, we're using percentages, and that's hard for people to keep track at home. So thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Commissioner Sacks.
I just agree with everything that's been said, and I look forward to that workshop. I also would request that we get information about these issues before the workshop so that we can digest them, especially with new commissioners on the board. I am really just so pleased to see the fresh eyes on these issues. My concern has always been location of these various units, locations within the city and within the county as a whole, as well as administration and enforcement of what we're doing. So I am just delighted to hear this discussion up to now. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any cards?
Mayor, if I can add?
Sure.
We have held one workshop, public meeting with interested parties regarding the housing bond, and we've received some input. We're looking to hold a second one before January 28th. So our goal is to provide you with a copy of the FIU report, and then also feedback from those public meetings with the industry partners prior to the January 28th workshop.
Great, thank you. And I know several of us did come in and stay and hear some of the questions and some of the comments. So thank you for putting that together, and we'll look forward to the second one.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so we have no cards. I don't believe we have any more questions of staff. May I have a first and a second, please?
So moved.
Vice Mayor Baxter, Commissioner Flores. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
See, the motion carries 7-0. Okay. Moving on to 6C5. This was the staff recommends the motion to deny the Marina Village project. Any would like a staff presentation on this? No? Anybody want to make a motion in a second?
I would make a motion to deny.
May I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Do we have any cards?
No.
On C5?
Oh, sorry, one card. I apologize.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. We will take the card.
Albert Milo.
Good morning, Madam Mayor, members of the commission. Albert Milo, President, Related Urban. Just want to highlight a few items for you on this proposal. This was a project that originally received the highest score in the first round from this board because it had the smallest request and percentage of dollars from as it relates to total project costs. It's under 7% of total project costs. And just a few things that I want to highlight for you. This project has a diversity of income, as you were just mentioning. We have units at 30%, 50%, 60%, 80%, 90%, 100%, and 110% of AMI. So we hit that whole strata of income diversity that the board was talking about earlier. Another important part is that we've already secured almost $16 million from the state of Florida. You were mentioning earlier about that a lot of applicants are coming to you for funds and then going to the state. This project went the other way. We had our state dollars and we came to you for the matching gap funds. And the only reason why staff is suggesting and not recommending the funds is because the state dollars do not allow a hard pay component to the financing, any other financing that is subordinate to them. So it's not because of any program parameter issues, it's just that the loan has to be a soft pay provision versus a hard pay provision. But the loan, it's not a grant, it would still be a loan, it would still get paid back, it just can't have that hard pay language. So I would ask the board to hopefully reconsider, because it's hard for under $5 million to get a project that is almost 150 units anywhere in Palm Beach County, and much less to have that type of income diversity.
Thank you. Commissioner Flores, your light is on. Do you have a question?
I have a few questions.
Okay.
Jonathan.
Yes, sir.
Walk me through this. All right. So this group has already $15 million from sale, which I believe they acquired in '23?
I'm not sure if it was 22 or 23.
It was right at the beginning of 24.
24.
All right. So what happens to this dollar if we reject this project today?
I'll give you my opinion, then I'll let Related kind of share. Typically, if it's a project that they're going to move forward on and the board does not approve these dollars, then if it's a project they want to do, then they'll look at other funding sources.
So they'll have to come back for additional dollars, whether it's with us or anybody else, but they're not going to lose the sale money.
They should not lose the sale money if they can find the dollars to plug the gap, and they don't necessarily need to come back to the county unless the county is providing dollars. If the county is not providing any funding for this project, then wherever they find the funds, that's who they'll work with.
And so there's a big change here. There was different dollars that were applied for, and now they're changing to the housing bond. Is that what changed here?
Well, this one here, the major challenge is that because it's a workforce housing bond request, workforce housing, as was stated, requires that a payment begins at a certain time. Unfortunately, it conflicts with the sale provision, where sale requires you can't have hard payments. Sale wants all soft payments. It is, payment, cash flow dependent, things like that. But the bond language and criteria approved by the board requires hard pay for workforce housing bond deals.
Because when I look at the numbers, I like the numbers. I mean, 149 multifamily housing units, 119 county assisted units. County assistance per unit is about 39, which the one we just approved was like 79. So how do we get this across the finish line? Because this is a project that on paper looks good.
Yes, sir. In this particular case, unless the board is going to make changes to the bond criteria, there's nothing that staff has that can get this one across. What we're doing now is just following the criteria as approved by the board, which all the other projects followed as well.
So it's really a hard pay.
Yes, sir.
So instead of starting at what year again? 15?
Typically, we're saying the program will allow a workforce housing developer to go the first 10 years with kind of an interest only, but that hard pay has to begin at year 11 unless underwriting determines they can begin paying at year 1, 2, 3, or 4.
Right.
So, underwriting will determine that, but at least by year 11, a principal payment has to begin.
So right now, they can't start making payments on us until what year, based on that conflict?
In this particular case, they could not begin payments year 11 if that's what the county ultimately decided, because the sale program, these hard payments, because the sale program, if they want that 15-4, they're not going to be able to agree to our terms.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I had Vice Mayor Baxter next.
Thank you, Mayor. Would you briefly explain the difference, hard pay, soft pay, and how you see what you think could be approached differently?
Yeah, so a couple of things that I think that's important. Any project that comes to this board that has sale financing of any type is going to have the same mandatory provision from the state of Florida. So if your funds are going to be in second position to the state, they're going to have this requirement. So it's not a distinction between an affordable project or a workforce project. In this project, the majority of the units are workforce. There's some of the units that are affordable, and that's kind of some of the dialogue that the board had asked, hey, can we have some of this additional income diversity? Now, as it relates to hard pay and soft pay, it's just that if the language can't say that the developer must pay X dollars or X percentage, it doesn't mean that we can't pay. It just means that the language can't say that we must pay. And that's really the nuance. I mean, it's to a certain extent, I'm not an attorney, but it could be semantics in that regard of like, we can't say obligated to pay because the state's loan is ahead of the county's loan. So it's not that the project doesn't demonstrate cash flow to pay. It's not that we can't pay off the loan by the term of the loan. It's not that we can't share, the payments of interest and cash flow with the county. None of that's not the fact pattern.
Administrator Baker, is there a reason that we have to keep must pay in there, especially if we're going to have other sale projects coming in? And again, looking at the numbers to Commissioner Flores's point, that's phenomenal. The dollars per, and for units, this amount of units. So what am I missing?
You're not missing anything. I think because this was a competitive process, I think that we should move forward as a part of the workshop in January, specifically address this issue. You have allowed us to put aside some ad valorem dollars in our HIP fund. And for some of this, that may be the pot of funding that we use unless the board changes the rules. The whole purpose of putting in the rules from the beginning to start paying back by a certain period of time is so that we would have a pot of money as projects are coming in, the dollars are being paid back, and we can continue to fund additional projects. The mere fact that this changed after it went to the underwriters, I believe in order to keep equity and be fair, that we address this in another manner. And we'll be having another process coming out.
I guess respectfully, I disagree. We keep pushing this down the road. Why not approve this one and then reconcile it at the workshop?
Again, it's up to the board. I'm simply pointing out this was a competitive process. It went through the underwriters and then the rules changed. And that is not how we normally handle these types of things. This is an excellent project, and I think it needs to be funded. There may be another way to do it, but because, again, it was competitive, in order to keep everybody on the same playing field, we should go back and address this issue with the board.
Would it help if we approved it and left the funding discretion to you?
I'm recommending that we somehow figure this.
I'm not saying.
Yeah, I'm recommending we figure out a way to address this issue because I do believe that it is a very good project. But when we go through a competitive process and we're outlining, they agree, they sign off, they know what's going on, it goes to the underwriters, and then the whole project changes. That's another issue altogether. But I do believe this is a good project. We can go back, work with them, and find a way to come back to the board, if that is the board's direction. I just don't think we should use the bond funds for this purpose, because the rules changed.
Madam Mayor, if it's the board's direction for us to move forward, we would be able to use the HIP funds that still require repayment, but there isn't language in that says that it must be the hard repayment. We just wouldn't be able to use the bond funds because that was the criteria that we issued in the RFP.
So to reiterate, what you're saying is there is a fund that could cover these dollars and not be the bond fund. And the reason being is we need to keep the integrity of the process.
Correct.
And we can't change once the process has been completed, and which is what has happened here. So if we can find another pot of money, which I think is what all of us are asking for, is we can do the motion to deny because of the bond, but we can say to you, we want to approve this project using other dollars available.
Yes.
So can we make the motion to approve based on funding from another pot of dollars, another source?
The HIP dollar.
Before.
Hang on.
Yeah.
I'm going to withdraw my second, so you can make.
I'll make the motion if you.
So you don't have a second anymore.
Okay, so we are back to square one. I still have some comments from our commissioners, but we have a motion and a second to approve, but using other dollars, not GO bond dollars. Is that a legitimate motion, Attorney?
I don't think we've made it yet. I think he withdrew the second, and Commissioner Woodward was the first.
Should be clean.
Can I make a
Hold on.
before we move on the motion, I just want to maybe look at legal and ask, can we defer this to
Yeah.
after this workshop
I
so that we
agree.
can clean things up and we have options? Or do we just make a blanket motion right now?
Yeah,
You can absolutely defer it if that's the board's decision.
yes. I agree with that too.
Thank you.
You may make sure that we get some information from the applicant to see if there's any deadlines that would be affected.
Yes, there are. Florida housing deadlines. This was last year's sale applications. This year's sale applications going now on December 20th. So it is time-sensitive matter to move the project forward. So we will gladly work with the administration and staff to supplement the funding source. But again, you're going to be hard-pressed to get any project. I don't think you've seen any project that has this kind of income diversity and this kind of subsidy on a per-project basis there. So that we would be able to work through different funding sources with staff in the time and keep the project on track to closing.
Jonathan, you look like you have a comment.
Just a comment. And so everything we were saying is fine. I just wanted to make one clarification. We can assist sale projects. The bond criteria doesn't requires hard pay for workforce developers. If it's an affordable housing project, there isn't an issue because the board has given us the ability to do soft pay. But the thought was, if you have a workforce developer doing market rate, do you want to give them 20 years to make a payment? Right. And so that's why the board had put a hard pay requirement in there for workforce projects.
But I think it goes back to the changing the criteria, which we need to be consistent. We can't keep changing every meeting. We can't keep changing and adjusting. We need to be consistent so that those people that are putting in offers they know what the ground rules are. Yes, so we can't accept this with the ground rules we have in place. So if this is something that the board wants to move forward, we have to figure out something here now, but it's not. It is not the GO bond. Okay, so I still have a couple lights on, and Commissioner Baxter, are you?
I wasn't finished.
Okay, go right ahead.
Thank you. And I think since the second was removed, what I was trying to get at, because I am in favor of moving it forward, I'm also in favor of the workshop coming back for the GO bond. So I would actually like to make the motion to approve this based on funding out of a source not being the GO bond.
I'll second that.
Got that? So we have a motion from the Vice Mayor, a second from Commissioner Weiss, and now we're going to continue discussion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. With all due respect, Commissioners, I'm from Riviera Beach. Of course, I'm looking at this. It says it's in District 7, and luckily I get to be the last person to speak before, I guess, after everybody's made motions, which I'm new to the commission. I spent a lot of years in Tallahassee. I don't know if that's how it works, but I'd appreciate it if, before we start making motions in the future, I have an opportunity to opine on something that is directly in a district that not only do I represent, but I was born and raised in Riviera Beach. So I just want to make that a note to my fellow commissioners for the future.
So Commissioner Powell, just to your point, a motion and a second, and then discussion. So it's not that we're moving it without any discussion. It's a motion, a second, and then discussion. That's Robert's rules.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. With regard to that, I think I have some interesting discussion to add to this based on what Mr. Milo had indicated. Based on your backup, this funding from the county, the housing bond program, will be about 7.65% of the total cost of the project. You receive $15.4 million from sale monies and then $1.5 million from Riviera Beach's CRA, which of course are significant amounts of funding. One of the issues here is when we talk about housing, especially when it comes to the housing bond program, this is specifically for, from what I'm looking at, rental housing, right? Because sale clearly stands for State Apartment Incentive Loan Program. So this is not like we're putting people in housing that allows them the opportunity to build equity. And I agree that the number of units that are provided in this are significant. I think you indicated that we'd be doing, what, 149 units? The challenge I have is, if this were to move forward today based on it being approved conceptually previously and then it being changed, who's to say that the next project by the next developer comes forward and it's a similar situation where they've received sale monies and we say, well, we're the board and here it is. This is a phenomenal project. I think everyone should have phenomenal projects, but when we get here, be ready and without any adjustments or changing, and then we get here today and the board agrees that it's a phenomenal project and we say, well, it's a phenomenal project, let's use funding from another source as opposed to the housing bond, and that way we can move forward with the project. Now, I agree, Mr. Milo, this is a significant amount of money that if there are deadlines that don't meet, you possibly lose, which is a challenge. But at the same time, we got here, and I think that all of us have had this backup to be able to look at, and maybe I don't know if there's something that we have to act today, then that would be good. But what's the difference between this project and the next one that comes in that's approved, and we say, well, because of the provisions in hard and soft payment paybacks, now we move and say, well, we'll just shift and use HIP funding for all of the projects. Or why not? If that's the process, then is that the process? Can somebody explain that to me? That if we can't fund it using housing bond dollars, then we shift it to HIP dollars?
Our housing initiative program, the HIP dollars, which are ad valorem dollars, have been set aside to allow for a little bit more flexibility by the board. The process for utilization of those funds is if a project comes in through other competitive processes and it doesn't meet all of the criteria for either our bond dollars or state or federal dollars, that the HIP dollars allow the board to have some flexibility to fund programs. That was the way the HIP criteria was established. When we come back to the board in January, we will also be discussing the criteria with HIP and bond and our impact fees, all of those things that are Board of County Commissioners funded, not coming from state or federal sources.
Thank you.
Sure.
Madam Mayor, just to address things, because, you know, there was no change as it relates to this project. This project was submitted as a tax-exempt bond deal, which had 40% of the units under the low-income housing tax credit program under income averaging, and 60% of the units as workforce. However, the county's bond program, as Mr. Brown illustrates, had only two buckets. It was either strictly affordable or strictly workforce. We were a hybrid. So we kind of fell in that mix. And we do have state dollars, Florida housing dollars, that are under the SIL workforce program. So it's not that we changed, it's just that the two boxes that the county had didn't really match up perfectly for us because we were a hybrid, so we were straddling that. So that's really the nuance and the challenge there.
Thank you. Commissioner Powell, any more questions?
No, I'm fine.
Okay, thank
Mayor,
you.
if I can add just one other comment. Just also a recognition that as the underwriters have approved, one of the things that they have also recommended for bond projects or HIP projects is a personal guarantee, a completion and operating deficit guarantee from a principal from the organization. So I just want to make sure we know that. It's in the underwriting reports, but I just wanted to make sure I stated that.
Thank you.
And Mayor, just one other thing, if we could have clarification in the motion of the funding source so that we are clear on what the board is approving in the motion. I didn't know if it was that.
I don't think we're there yet.
Okay.
But we'll get there. Okay. Commissioner Weiss.
All right. So I think that, you know, in listening, in first off, appreciate staff's recommendation and understanding the parameters you were given, and so the way you brought this forward. But that this is a valuable project to the community, and if there's a way to figure this out. So let me just see if I can try and cut this the right way. Because my understanding is, so on the workforce side, is where we prohibit the soft pay.
Yes, sir.
But on the affordable side, we do allow for the soft pay. So what if we split the difference on this one, and we take on the affordable side, we use the housing bond dollars to help fund those. And then for that portion that they requested. And then on the workforce side, we give you direction to use the HIP funds for that portion. That way we can stay consistent with what our housing bond. We can use some of the housing dollars for this. We don't take all of our HIP dollars into just this project. And then when you bring it back and I agree, because the process on this, that we asked people how to, what to bring their projects forward, what the rules were, and everybody was treated the same. On the other hand, don't want to see us lose the sale dollars, because that's what I'm hearing, is that if you don't have this done before the new application, you're going to lose those dollars. Is that right?
We have a closing deadline that we have to adhere to. So if we don't have the funds,
What is the closing deadline?
we have to close in the next 6 months.
Oh, so we have time.
I said December 20th.
A little bit of time, because you got to close the deal.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that would be my recommendation on how to try and move this thing forward, trying to keep it consistent with our housing bond program, but giving staff direction for those HIP funds so that we can move that.
Commissioner, if I can respond to that, we'll definitely need to evaluate it, because I don't know if the sale dollars are all tied to those units. I don't know if there are any units left that we can use, affordable units left that we can use bond funds for.
Oh, so you're thinking that the bond funds may only be going towards the workforce?
They are. That's the RFP that Related applied for, was the workforce units.
Oh, well, then my suggestion isn't going to work.
Any other suggestions? We're back to square one.
We would be back to just
given me direction.
using all HIP funds.
Correct. Yeah. Okay, so you're not going to amend your motion? All right, thank you. Commissioner Woodward, your light was on, and then Vice Mayor Baxter.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry, let me go back a bit. Let me start with my question for the attorneys. Is there anything that can be added to the language, the way this project was put in, that would guarantee our payback? Because I know the must, can, whatever, that language. Is there anything that we can change to this? Or this is state statute, am I correct?
Yeah, let me refer to Mr. Falcon, who's been working on this.
Yes, I don't see how we can accomplish that. I don't see how we can accomplish that. It's either it's required or it's not. It's not on their, if they're willing to, kind of thing. That just doesn't work.
Okay, because if there's nothing that we can actually put into the contract, I don't support using the bond funds for whether it's soft or hard or any of that discussion. My other question is, for the underwriting, was this the only part that didn't make it through the underwriting, was the hard and soft pay?
That was the conflict, yes. The other parameters of the county's conceptual approval was fine, but it's the hard pay versus the soft pay.
So if we were to move this forward with an alternate funding, the existing underwriting would go ahead and qualify? We wouldn't need to go through underwriting a second time? No.
Right.
Okay. And then,
But there was also a provision in the underwriting with a recommendation to get a personal guarantee. So that was part of the underwriting report.
And is that something that the applicant agreed to?
Yeah, we're putting our own equity in addition to that. We're putting another $1.5 million of our own dollars in there. So that's usual and customary on other deals.
And that would satisfy underwriting's requirement?
Well, again, we'd have to go back because the term sheet was not agreed to. So we would have to go back to the county's term sheet to make sure that the project would agree to the terms, which includes the personal guarantee.
So then if we were to move this through, we would still need a second round of underwriting?
Not necessarily a second round of underwriting,
Just an
but
amendment?
Related would have to agree to the terms. So the goal was to always bring you the terms so you'll know exactly what the terms are. So when staff execute agreement and then bring you back you would at least know what you're giving staff delegated authority to do. And right now, we don't have a signed term sheet.
Okay, so if we use the HIP funds, what would the payback look like on that?
In this particular case, the developer would be requesting soft pay requirements, which means that we can't require a principal payment. What we do know is you have 20 years to make a payment toward principal, and so the developer could wait till the end to repay it. We'll receive some interest throughout, but the principal would not be required until, again, the loan matures, the bond matures.
So it could be 20 years before there's any principal repayment, or the entire principal has to be repaid by the 20-year mark? But it could happen in year 20?
It could happen in year 20, if there is no requirement, which I believe is why Mr. Falcon is saying there's really no, it's either a yes, you have to start making principal payments at this time, or no, you don't.
Okay.
I believe under the sale requirements, we could make this a cash flow dependent repayment. So they would have to present to us each year what the cash flow is of the project. Depending on that cash flow, we could get both interest and principal repayment. But if there wasn't cash flow in the project, we would not be able to require that repayment until after the sale loan was repaid.
And that would be in this contract to make it cash flow?
We could do that.
And we would need to put that in the term sheet. So like I say, if the board is going to give direction for another funding source, then we need to really look at how the term sheet's going to be set up, and if we're going to have a signed term sheet, because at this point, we don't know what Related would agree to, but what we do know is hard pay will not work with their project. But there are other terms and other requirements that would be applicable for the HIP funds.
Okay, and this question is for Related. As far as I was looking, I went through the backup and I can't find what are the bedrooms? Like what are the units? I see the percentage of units and how many there are, but what are they?
They're a mixture of ones and twos.
Do you have the size of that, like square footage? They're ones and twos?
610 for a 1 and 915 for a 2.
And what's the mixture? Is it like 50-50?
It's 5, 18, 22, 32, 35, 37, 48, 70. It's about 40% ones and 60% twos. If I did my math quickly here on there.
Okay. Thank you. And that's evenly distributed between the income levels?
Yes.
Okay.
That's a requirement of Florida Housing. Like I said, we're between 30 and 110, and we have, I think, 8 different income levels.
Okay, well, I will support the rest of the board in the motion, but just so I know, this will come back to us with term sheets and everything that's been discussed. Well, then, this isn't like a final approval. What comes back to us after this?
We will bring it back, because there's been so many changes, we'll bring it back to the board for final approval.
Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Coppin.
I was just going to suggest that the board simply give direction to staff to bring this back when they've done the term sheet and had it agreed to and worked out the specifics.
Thank you. And Ms. Baker, your light is on also.
I was going to suggest, because you've given us direction, to simply, you can postpone it and we can bring it back once we've got the term sheet and bring it back to the board, which would be different than the bond funds.
It is a totally different motion. Okay. So
I would make a substitute motion for that.
We don't need a motion.
Okay.
Wait, can it be time certain, please?
All right, we're going we're going off the rails here. Okay, so actually, Vice Mayor Baxter, you were next. So do you have any comments?
More so, I heard your questions, Commissioner Powell, but I wanted to know how you felt about the project. How do you feel about it? Do you like it?
Thank you for the question, Vice Mayor. It leaves a lot. I have not seen a conceptual site plan, so I don't know if I like the project or not. I think 149 units is good. However, when you're talking about units at 900 square feet for a 2-bedroom, 600 square feet for a 1-bedroom, I don't know exactly what that looks like. I mean, to say, do I like a project that I've never seen? I'm a planner, so I would like to see a site plan and what it looks like on paper, at least conceptually. If I told you that I like the project without seeing what it looks like, what the aesthetics of the project coming to a community I live in, I don't have enough information to tell you that. However, I know that it's necessary that we get more units. I know it's more rental than homeownership, which for me is, it just doesn't allow people to be more upwardly mobile. My question, though, is, if we were to move forward with the denial or the approval with conditions, does this prevent this from coming back at a later date? If we were to deny today, as staff has recommended, does that prevent this project from coming back before the 6-month time frame that Mr. Milo has indicated? I think there's a lot of information that's not here on paper and that's not in the backup that will lead to be desired. If we're going to move forward with the commission's recommendation to approve, barring the staff recommendation, I'm probably not going to be with the rest of the commission, but that's okay. That's the challenge of being a part of the board and a part of the team. But there's a lot of information that I don't have that just doesn't give me the confidence to be able to support right now.
So I will, I guess there's a substitute motion out there. I don't need to withdraw my motion, but I do support, having this come back with the terms and everything. And I think I would really like you to meet with Commissioner Powell and make sure that everyone is comfortable. I don't think we need to deny it, but I think coming back with some terms and conditions would be great. And then at that time, we can make a final determination.
The only caution I would give is that the cone of silence is still in place because this was a competitive process. So we will provide you with all of the information that was submitted with the proposal, so you'll see the site plan. But we can't recommend that individual meeting be held.
It works.
Okay, so it sounds like, and I still have lights on. Joel, did you want to comment? Sure.
So the reason that I asked the questions and I started this whole thing is because the project looks really good. It's one of the few projects that I actually like the numbers as they stand. And when they're only asking for 7.7% of the total cost, affordability period of 60 years, I like it. And we started with the bond program 2 years ago. We went and asked the voters for the dollars, and yet there's still no shovels on the ground. And by the time these units are built, it's going to be, another year and a half, 2 years? So we need to prioritize housing, and this is a good project that in paper looks good. If we just need to divert where the funding comes from, then we should do that. So I don't want to deny, because I think it sends a mixed message to the people. I am in favor of postponing with time certain, hopefully as quickly as possible, early January, first meeting, something like that. And my last question is, the payment issue is, when can they actually make the first principal payment based on the sale? That's what I want to understand. So you said that there's a conflict with bonds, so if they went to another source, when should we expect that? Is it year 15, year 16, year 17? Because I don't want to wait till year 20, but I do want to start getting some principal payments.
With the sale provisions, the payments will be what is called cash flow dependent. So each year, the developer will have to submit to the county the documentation supporting their cash flow. If there is cash flow available to pay principal and interest, it can start
Then that's the language that I want.
That's what we would put in an alternative.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so the word deny is being bandied about. We don't want to use the word deny. What we would like to do, though, is, and what I believe the motion was, it was a motion to approve, but using a different pot of funds. And do you want to postpone? But we're postponing.
Well,
let me clarify, though, because the deny it has to deal with the general obligation bond. Right. So that is what we really need to clear that up. And what we're saying is this project going forward can't be part of the GL bond. So the motion to deny is actually an accurate motion at this point in time. We can then do another motion, or a request to bring this back with dollars from another pot. Does that sound agreeable to everybody? Ms. Kaufman?
I think the best thing to do is to postpone and give instructions to staff. We don't want to do, you could deny it and then tell staff to bring it back, but that's not really what you're trying to do. You definitely don't want to approve it with instructions because there's a lot of work to be done, including a term sheet that has to be signed. So let's simply postpone it with instructions to staff to try to restructure this in a way that's palatable and get it back to the commission in the first or second January meeting.
So Commissioner Woodward, is that what you would like to do?
Yes, that would be my motion.
Okay, and did I have a second?
Second.
I've got lots of seconds.
Does it have to be time certain? Does it have to be time certain if you're
It
postponing?
does not have to be, but you could select a date in January if you'd like.
As soon as possible.
So I would select the first or second January meeting. When is our first? January 10th, I believe, is our first meeting.
Yes, that's right after the holiday. So if you give us direction to do
the second meeting in
as soon
January?
as possible. So if we're able to work out the term sheets with Related during that time frame, and you're saying the second meeting in January,
Yeah,
I think that's
I'll
more
be dropping off
reasonable.
my daughters at school on the 7th, so
Understand.
I'm gonna need the second meeting.
So we would require that motion with instructions to staff to bring it back by the second meeting in January.
Mr. Brown.
So whether it's this item or the next item, we're going to have to bring back a denial for the bond funds because the board has conceptually approved it. And so it's tied to something and we can't use them in the future unless there is some sort of denial. So on the next item, we're going to have to bring back a denial. We can recommend another source, but we're also going to have to deny to unobligate the conceptually approved housing bond funds for the project.
So that motion was still on the floor. I did not have a second.
So,
Okay.
Okay, but we may, you have said here that this motion to deny is tied to this particular development. So you need a denial on this particular development because you've obligated bond funds to this particular development. And we're not going to be using the bond funds for this particular development.
We can do it when we come back.
We can do it when we come back. So do a dual motion.
You don't have nowhere else to spend the money.
Not yet. Not yet. We're gonna bring you some more projects, Commissioner, but we don't have them yet.
Gotcha.
So to be clean,
Yes.
we are postponing and direction to staff is to, as quickly as possible, work it out. So we're looking at the second meeting in January for item C5.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we had a motion, we had a second. Any more discussion? Seeing
Mayor?
none.
For the record, can you please restate the maker and seconder of the final motion?
The motion was Commissioner Woodward. The second was everybody, so we'll put Commissioner Flores there.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any more discussion? So we will take a vote. All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
See, the motion carries 7. Commissioner Sachs, are you still on?
Yeah, I
Thank
sure
you.
am.
Okay,
And
so-
I agree with everything that was said, and I agree.
Thank you. So we have a
Aye.
7-0 vote then. Thank you very much. Now we'll move on to item C6. Go ahead, staff.
Yeah, present.
Go ahead and present,
Okay.
yes.
So again, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. So item 6C6 is the second project that staff is recommending denial, the second related project that staff is recommending denial. A couple key things to highlight here. One is the modified funding request, which is when the board requested the best and final at 14.9. It represents 24.74% of the total project costs, a 40-year affordability period, 145 units, which has increased to 160 units now, which you'll hear more about. County assistance per unit here is just over 102,000. Staff is recommending denial for this one as well because it's not consistent with what the board approved conceptually. And I just want to kind of jump there. The board, under conceptual approval for 60% AMI units, the board conceptually approved 58. The proposed change by the developer would be 0 units there. The board conceptually approved 0 units at 80. We're looking at now the newly proposed would be 16. and then the board approved 87 units at 110% AMI. The developer is now proposing 144 units. Again, more units, but because it's not consistent with the board's conceptual approval, staff recommends denial.
Thank you. Commissioner Flores, your light is on.
Yeah, on this project, I don't like the numbers. I don't like how they moved the amount of units from affordable to not so affordable. So I make a motion to deny.
Second.
Okay. We have cards. So, you got the timer going? You want to call our cards?
We have Bishop W. Osher Granger and Lynn Whitfield, Albert Milo, and then we have non-speaking cards.
Okay. Go right ahead, sir.
Madam Mayor, and to the commission and to all staff, of course. One of the things that we are here for, and I represent the Mount Calvary Ministries, we've been a major part of the community for just about 67 years. And we are so fortunate as a church to embrace three basic concepts in addition to life-changing ministry. We believe in support, we believe in security, and we believe in solutions. From a very practical perspective, we have seen, and I as a pastor in this community for almost 40 years, I've listened to and had conversations with persons who have had to leave the county as a direct result and consequence of that not being affordable housing or workforce housing. So on a very human level, I want to appeal to each of you as commissioners to consider this need that so graphically affects our citizenry. I think about law enforcement. I think about educators. I think about young people and the next generations. I want to see them have the occasion to thrive in this county and be able to have a place to live that's safe and that is healthy. I recognize the complexity of the numbers that have been abounded in the conversations even previously, but let me appeal to you on a very human level. Let's make sure that we work through, and I appreciate and respect all of the reference to the details, and I know you and staff and the developers will be able to do what you've done up to this point in this meeting and get together and let's make housing available for people, because people need a safe environment to live. Thank you.
Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is V. Lynn Whitfield. I am a resident of Palm Beach County since 1985. I am a proud homeowner in Old Northwood, and I am unfortunately a person who has a millennial who has to live with me now because they cannot afford their own place. And I am not by myself. Believe me, so many of my friends have their children that are back home with them because they can't afford to buy a place or to even rent a place here in Palm Beach County. So we definitely, when we voted for this bond, we voted for y'all to spend it to provide affordable housing. Now, I understand that y'all set some ranges and some motions and some units you want, and that you sent it to the developer and your thing said that they didn't accept it. And that's it? So we just gonna quit? We just gonna say deny? We not going back and try to get together and talk and see can't we work this out? This is too important to us here in Palm Beach County for staff just to say, oh, well, they didn't accept our numbers, so deny them. Let's put some effort into this. Let's work together to make this happen. And that's all I want to say about it. We need affordable housing. We need it in that area. That was the area I first lived in. I live less than a half a mile from that area right now. And we need this housing there. So I would ask that you do not accept the staff recommendation. I've been in government for over 30 years. I know how to make a staff recommendation to my bosses for them to accept, but I also know how to make it work with my private partners to get things done for my municipalities and counties. I ask that you do that and send staff back to the developers to work this out. Thank you.
Virginia, your light is on. Would you like to say something?
Just to the speaker, Ms. Whitfield, she's an attorney and she's worked with it. You also know that a competitive process is a competitive process, and we can't treat one developer differently from another developer. This is a project we think is good, and we'll work with others, but in this particular case, this was a competitive process.
Thank you. Commissioner Powell, your light is on.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Commissioner Flores, when you spoke earlier, indicated that you looked at the numbers, and the numbers, you didn't like the numbers. And if you look at the sheet that we have here that's also provided in the backup of the agenda, 60% of the area median income, this was approved at the BCC with 58 units that would be available at 60% of the area median income. Or less, right? Or less.
Zero.
And it looks like it was originally approved with 58, and now there's 16. That's a reduction of 42 units at that price when you're talking about, especially now with the number of people who are looking for housing opportunities and moving in and out of Palm Beach County. And then the increase in the 110%. And we talked earlier, we talked about if you look at a family of four, Florida Housing Finance, $104,000. At 60% of the area median income, that's $62,400 at that lower or below. At 110% is $114,400. $114,000 for a family of four, 110% of area median income. You can see there's an increase of 57 units from 87 to 144. The question I have in considering making this work, Mr. Milo, it was approved at the BCC with the conceptual approval before I was here, with a completely different number of units, 145 units approved, and the numbers seem to be more favorable for people who may be looking for housing opportunities. And it has come back with 160 units, which is an increase of 15 total, but you cannot overlook the fact that you go from 87 units at 110% of the area median income to 144. That's completely different from what appears to have been approved, unless I didn't see the meeting, unless my backup is wrong and the backup here is wrong. I don't even, how does this happen? Process-wise, how does this even happen?
And you're correct. It goes back to this originally was a hybrid deal, 60-40 deal. So there was a percentage of units that, and a tax-exempt bond execution, have to be LIHTC units, and a percentage that were workforce. In trying to fit into the workforce bucket, we modified that from a tax-exempt bond execution to a strict workforce deal. So that's the change. But you're
Madam
correct.
Mayor?
You're correct.
Madam Mayor, follow-up?
Sure.
Mr. Milo, with all due respect, how do you all make that decision and come back to the board with this completely different number and expect otherwise?
No, we did not. We're not challenging anything on staff proposal, right? We simply, staff asked us to work through the underwriting. We're trying to fit through some of the parameters that were given to us by the board previously and trying to thread the needle. So unlike the other deal that we had state dollars, we don't have any dollars in this. So we're just trying to navigate within the cap set. And again, we had a deal that was partially affordable, partial workforce. So we're just trying to straddle. So I'm not, challenging anything that of your analysis.
Okay. Thank you very kindly.
Thank you.
He had a card for 3 minutes. Mr. Milo?
Did you have a card in?
You had a
Mr.
card
Milo,
in.
for
Did
this
you
one
want to
also?
use your 3 minutes?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay. So, Do we need a motion to deny?
Are there any more cards?
Thank
Can we
you.
have a second?
Okay, we made a motion and a second. Sorry, I wasn't here. And any more discussion? I'd actually like to make a comment, but anyone else have a, no one's lights are on. I've been a little quiet. We have parameters in place for a reason. And if we don't follow the parameters, then those that followed them get denied. I'm sorry, those that followed them are on the short end of the stick. So I don't think in the middle of the process we need to be changing. So I would agree to, with the rest of the board, that this should be denied because we can't have people, you put in your bid, it is an open process as Ms. Baker said, and everyone needs to do the same process. So with that, I think we have a motion and a second. I know we have a motion and a second. I don't believe we have any more discussion. All those in favor of denial, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Thank you very much. Okay, it is 11:40. We have 2 more of these? We do. What would everybody like to do about taking a small lunch break?
You want to finish housing?
So we'll finish. Okay. How about, can we take a 10-minute break and then we will finish these 2 and then we'll take a lunch break after that. All right, thank you. So we're going to recess until 10 of 12. Thank you. Yeah.
10 of 12.
My eyes were turning yellow.
Very good. Thank you.
And after we are done with our housing, we're going to lunch for an hour, okay? So this way everybody in the audience knows what's going on. And so we are at item 6C, 7A and B, where we are looking to approve a Home American Rescue Plan award to the Flight Center for $1 million and authorize the county administrator to execute the loan. Now, do we have, would anybody like a staff presentation? Okay, we have a taker. Yes, please.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. So we are, we've worked a little while with Flight Center as well as with Payne Chapel, and we're happy to report back to the board a recommendation for using some stimulus dollars, home ARP dollars, as Mayor mentioned, a little over $1 million for the rehabilitation of 8 units. And I want to state that because earlier there was something about acquisition, but this is about rehabilitation of 8 units that the Flight Center will use that are owned by Payne Chapel. We're happy to also report that Payne Chapel and Flight Center has agreed to a deed affordability period of 49 years and 11 months, so a little longer than the 30 years that was initially presented to us. Those 8 units would serve individuals who are at 50% or below. Flight Center typically serves youth that have been victims of domestic violence and human trafficking, et cetera, et cetera. So there's some great things that they are looking to do for these 8 units. And we are excited that the Payne Chapel is in agreement with them. Here's a breakdown of the cost in terms of the county's contribution, Flight Center's contribution, and the City of West Palm Beach's contribution. And we're here today requesting approval of these funds.
Welcome to your Palm Beach County government.
Okay, we're having an advertisement for Palm Beach County, which is good. If you all had come to the state of the county this morning, you would have had a 20-minute advertisement about the county. Okay, then. Commissioner Powell, this is in your district. Do you have any questions?
No, Madam Mayor, I see that it shows that it's no longer acquisition, it is for rehab. So with that, I would motion to approve.
Second.
So we have cards. So what we'll do is, because we have a motion on the table by Commissioner Powell and we have a second by Commissioner Vice Mayor Baxter, we are going to now take cards. Is that clear for the clerk? Okay. Go right ahead.
Okay, we have 4 cards. Reverend Odell Watson, Christine Frederick, Alex Ortiz, and Terry Alexander.
Good morning. As the senior pastor of Payne Chapel, I just want to thank the county for your support on this initiative. This is a project where the goals and objectives of the county and the mission of our church align. Payne Chapel AME Church, established 132 years ago, is the oldest church in West Palm Beach. This project provides affordable housing to residents in West Palm Beach. The mission of the African Methodist Episcopal Church is to minister to the spiritual, intellectual, physical, emotional, and environmental needs of all people. Through the funding of this project, you enable us to assist the critical demographic of our community and continue the mission of our church. Once again, thank you.
Could you state your name for the record, sir?
Reverend Odell Watson.
Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next?
Good morning. My name is Christine Frederick. I'm the CEO of the Flight Center. Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners, I just want to express our gratitude from Flight Center standpoint. We serve a population that's often forgotten. The 18 to 25-year-old young people who are often aging out of foster care, who are coming from a background of homelessness and trauma. And we're so excited and so grateful to Payne Chapel for allowing us to utilize their space in order to provide housing and allowing us to do this project, where there will be housing services on site as well. The Flight Center is located across the street from the property that we would be master leasing, and we'll be able to do housing services, support services to be able to transition our youth to sustainability after their time living at the location. So we're just very grateful for any consideration you give to moving this forward. We've worked very hard on it, and just wanted to say thank you and express our gratitude.
Thank you.
Good morning, esteemed members of the board, Mayor Marino, Vice Mayor Baxter, Commissioner Powell, Commissioner Weiss, Woodward, Flores, welcome, and welcome to Powell as well, and to County Administrator Baker. I have somewhat of a prepared statement, but I also did want to acknowledge former Commissioner Bernard, who was very supportive of this initiative and in his district, and you now are Commissioner in our district. As you know, I have the honor to serve as Director of Development with Flight Center, and I just wanted the opportunity to express my profound gratitude and excitement to come together with Payne Chapel AME Church, united to this transformative impacts proposed through this very important Hawks Eggs Housing and Services Initiative. This project represents a vital step in our mission to provide critical safety, stability, and opportunities to the vulnerable and at-risk population that we serve, including those survivors of human trafficking, who will have an easily accessible and supportive place to heal, grow, and reclaim their independence. This initiative is more than just housing. It's hope. Hope for youth and families who have faced unimaginable challenges. This program will create a safe haven where they can rebuild their lives with honor, dignity, and support. It will be a catalyst for collaborative partnerships within the community, uniting us all in the shared goal to offer them pathways to independence, resilience, and ensuring them that they know that they are never alone on this journey, helping shape their futures, foster resilience, and provide a roadmap for a brighter tomorrow. We are grateful to you for your time, your consideration, the prospect of your approval for this project, confirming your and our unwavering commitment to continue to build a community that invests in this at-risk population, and we're honored to work alongside you to make our vision their reality. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And is Terry Alexander still here?
Yes, he is. Good morning.
Morning.
And looking at the summary that's published in the agenda here and previewing through it, there's a lot of ambiguity there. I'm a retired math educator and administrator from the School District of Palm Beach County. When we use inequalities, they have to be used correctly. The term, I won't even call it a term or an expression, no less than 30 years is not an acceptable math expression or statement. We have less than and equal to, we have greater than and equal to, and we have a compound statement. The term no less than means you got a lower bound, but there's no upper bound. It can go from 30 years to infinity. This is unacceptable as written. That's my first comment. My other comment is that as I sat here for the past 2.5 hours, I've seen proposals for monies 3 and 4 times as much as being offered for this particular project. And their term is 30 years. How can a project that's getting $15 million over 30 years be on the same scale as a project that's getting $1.4 million for 30 years? Is our scale logarithmic? Makes no sense. We should have an even scale with a straight slope, not a logarithmic slope. I have no problem with the project. We just need to do things correctly. That's my comment.
Thank you, sir. Any more cards? That's it. Whoop. Excuse me. All righty, so we had a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Commissioner Powell. Commissioner Weiss had his light on first.
So just to clarify for folks, in this case, is this a repayable loan?
This is not a repayable loan unless there's some level of default.
So this would end up as a grant, where what we were talking about earlier today were loans coming from our housing bond.
Yes, sir.
And then our esteemed speaker, so in this case, and what we clarified today is a minimum of 49 years and 11 months to remain at the minimum as affordable housing. But if they wanted to, if Payne Chapel decided to support this to go for 100 years, that would be acceptable as well.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Powell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To address what Mr. Terry said with regard to no less than 30 years, is there a way, Mr. Brown, to specifically address his comments with regard to the idea that there's ambiguity? I said that right, ambiguity? Ambiguity within the wording of the item and even in the backup.
Yes, sir, Commissioner. So the phrase no less than 30 years was because we were working with Flight Center and Payne Chapel on a higher affordability period. We knew 30 years was going to be kind of the bottom because that was what they put in their proposal to us, but we did not know when they would have the final, and ultimately the final came out on Sunday.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Commissioner Flores.
Just for clarity, we're talking about 49 years and 11 months, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that sentence no longer applies.
That does no longer applies.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I think we have had discussion. We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you very much. Now we'll go on to regular agenda item C8, and staff is recommending a motion to approve. Deadline for all current conceptually approved housing bond loan programs and HIP funded projects to be submitted for the final Board of County Commissioner approval no later than March 11th, 2025.
I'll make the motion to move this.
Okay, so we will have a presentation, and in the meantime, we have a motion. Do we have a second? And we have a motion from the Vice Mayor, and we have a second from Commissioner Woodward. We will have a staff presentation, and then we'll have discussion.
Yes, ma'am. Commissioners, the first page I'll start with is information we've seen. This is just the housing bond background summary, going back to from the referendum to the bond issuance dates. Before today, we've seen 12 projects, but the numbers have slightly changed. The workforce and affordable and for sale are fine, but we've seen that there have been some changes as the board has made decisions on projects today. So you'll see some slight changes as we move forward. 3 projects have been approved using bond. Today there was another, and then we have still a conceptual working on another. Prior to today, these were the 3 projects that were approved: Community Land Trust, Sun Foundation, and SP Field, Inc. Today, you discussed these projects. I won't rehash those, but these projects were discussed today. Now, the status of the remaining projects, which is one of the questions that came up before. So there are 3 projects that have been submitted to underwriting and we're awaiting an underwriting report. The first one is Westgate Terrace. The second one is One North Lake. The third is Village of Valor. Village of Valor was approved by the board less than 30 days ago, so that one we expect that'll make progress as well. There are 3 projects that have not yet met the requirements to be sent to underwriting: Isaiah Clark Apartments, Drexel Road Senior Apartments, and Judge Rogers Court. And we'll talk a little bit more about each of these projects. The ones that have been submitted to underwriting, again, the Westgate Terrace, One North Lake, and Village of Valor. Workforce, and you'll see affordable. Here we also have the distinction. The first 2 are not only workforce, but there are HIP deals. And then the last one is an affordable bond deal. So let's talk a little bit about Westgate Terrace. Just want to refresh your memory on some of the terms that the board conceptually approved. It is a $3.2 million amount with a 30-year affordability period was their ask. But if they convert it to HIP, HIP requires a minimum of a 50-year affordability period. So that's what this project would be under as it relates to affordability period. You're talking about 46 multifamily housing units. Again, just another note, this particular project, and we'll talk about the other one, was approved before we set the 110% AMI cap. So as you can see, they have the ability to go up to 120% AMI on their rental units. Total development cost per unit, just over $86,000 per unit. And then here you'll see the capital stack of this particular project. Because it's a for-profit developer, they're going to have an interest rate between 1% and 3% once underwriting is completed. The second project, again, in underwriting, One North Lake, located in the city of Pahokee, $4.6 million at a 30-year affordability period was the ask. They're going to end up being a 50-year affordability period. We're talking about 54 units, again, up to 120% AMI, where the per unit cost is just over $86,000. And here you'll see the capital stack. 2 sources that were provided by the county. One was the ad valorem infrastructure funding, which was provided as a grant a few years ago. And then the last project in underwriting, we've talked about this enough, Village of Valor, $4.3 million, 15% of the total cost, 50-year affordability period. And you'll see the units, you'll see the cost per unit, and the capital stack for that project. So these are in underwriting. These 3 projects have yet to make underwriting, which is, again, part of the discussion as to why we want to have a date set for them. Isaiah Clark Apartments, if you recall, board, when in June when you made the conceptual approval, they were going to seek sale dollars. And they've gone through the process of trying to secure other dollars, and they have not been successful as of yet in receiving those dollars. Right now, the conceptual approval we have has it at $7.362 million, 50 years, and 125 senior units. And so at this point, the project is still looking for funding, but they haven't secured the rest of the funding. Drexel Road Senior Apartments also at that meeting shared their desire to seek additional dollars, and if they were able to get the additional dollars, it would hopefully then plug the gap. At this point, they haven't received it. Terms as approved by the board are listed here: $13 million, 50-year affordability period. Initially, they were at 222 senior units. We've had conversations, and that may change, and the number of units may reduce, and they may look at phasing the project moving forward. But at this point, it's still stalled because of funding. And then lastly, Judge Rogers Court, again, as the board has approved, 13 million, 50-year term, 50-year affordability period, and the county assistance per unit is at 195,000. That project, again, has not met the requirements to be sent to underwriting. And so we're just requesting today from the board, you'll see just an overview of all the projects that have received conceptual approval, and the total amount of bond dollars, HIP dollars that have been conceptually approved, total that hasn't been submitted to underwriting, and then at the bottom, total awaiting underwriting. Today, we're requesting that the board set for these particular developers a date of March 11th to come back to the board for final approval. If not, we want to make those dollars available once we issue the new round of bonds in March, April of 2025. And staff will address any questions you may have.
Actually, I do have one. Your amount total not submitted to underwriting, you have 33 million?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, you're right. I did my math wrong. No problem.
You good? Okay.
So wait a second, that doesn't work. But okay.
I did want to remind the board that when we put the initial RFP out, one of the requirements were that all of the projects would be shovel-ready. And so that's the reason why we're asking for a deadline to be set so that we can free up the funds to be able to use in the next round.
Well, 33 million is tough to be sitting on and not using, so yes. Commissioner Flores, your light is on, and then Commissioner Woodward.
All right, so there's 3 that haven't gone to underwriting. There's 1 that we sort of killed today?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So there's 33 plus that other one. Is that correct?
33 that have not been submitted to underwriting, and if they do not make it to underwriting, that would be 33 million available, on hand available when we issue the RFPs next year, 2025.
And am I correct that Gallery, we denied today?
Yes,
So
sir.
that's another 15.
Yes, sir.
So we're talking about $48 million that the bond has already been issued, and we're paying taxes.
Interest.
Yes.
I mean, interest. Okay. So I'm in agreement, but I do want to bring something else up, which I spoke to you about, which is the sale dollars. And this is something that, I don't know if I'm the only one that has started or what, I'm pretty sure it's not. But when we're approving all these projects, they're all coming in for sale as part of their project, yet the state's only going to award once, maybe 2. So if there's 5 projects coming in, and I believe there's going to be another round of RFPs, and we approve them all with sale dollars, but yet the state is only going to approve once or twice, how do we not go out and issue again the bonds before those are finally approved? So to me, that's a concern, because if in the back of our heads we're thinking we have a pipeline of X amount of units coming online, but yeah, they're all pending sale dollars. We're issuing bonds, we're paying now interest. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes,
or am
sir.
I the only one? Okay.
Yes, sir. No, you're correct, Commissioner. And so one of the things we've shared with developers when we held the first public meeting was the county makes available funding dollars, whether it's through SHIP, our state program, whether it's through HOME, our federal funding source, or even our impact fee assistance program that will provide the local match that allows a developer to apply for sale, or even the 9% tax credit or the 4% tax credit at the state level. And so we're going to continue to encourage those developers, use the programs that the county has always made available for that. And after you secure whatever dollars you need at the state level, if there's still a funding gap, at that point you can come back to the county for other dollars. But it's not been our intention, and I don't believe it was the commission's intention, to tie up dollars while it's waiting for other funding at the state or federal level.
So is it possible not to go out and issue the bond if we conceptually approve them until they get the sale approval?
It depends on the time of year, to be honest with you, Commissioner, because if it's going to be approved as part of the county's budget, we're going to have to make sure we go through that process and make sure that those dollars, and OFMB does what they need to do to make sure those dollars are available. And that's what happened this year. So we were on that timeline, and we knew that we're going to have some projects that are going to begin in January. And so we know we needed to have dollars available. And then looking at the timeline and schedule of other projects, they were giving us dates prior to October 1 of next year that they would be ready to break ground. So we knew we had to have dollars on hand to work or to meet the construction schedules they provided.
I just want to remind us to be prudent with the bond dollars. And if we're already paying interest and money, I mean, we're talking about $48 million, so we're already paying on. So I just want to make sure that we're fair to our residents.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Woodward.
Thank you, Mayor. As I'm looking at this, we actually, I think that we have two different groups that we're working with, because we have 3 that are awaiting underwriting, which means they have actually done what we've asked them to, and they're in the process. And then we have 3 that have not even submitted to underwriting, and they were all approved on June 4th? So we're at the 6-month mark, and when this was put out, this was meant to be shovel ready to go. And if I'm of the opinion, if they haven't submitted to underwriting, I say now, but if we want to give them an extra 30 days or something, then, get it into underwriting. And it should have already happened. If you came to us and went through this entire process, because I remember we discussed this, and some of these projects we weren't all excited about, but the idea was let it go to underwriting, and that'll shake out what's good and what's not. If it's not even going to underwriting after 6 months, I say that this is done. And those 3, if you haven't submitted at this point, I don't believe that, you're ready to go. It doesn't mean you can't come back, once you work out all the kinks, come back. But at this point, what you're telling me is what they would send to underwriting is not what we approved initially, because it just doesn't work. The math, it doesn't work for them. And that's $33 million. And I know we're getting ready to issue a new one in a few months. It would be good to know how much money is already being repaid by the citizens of this county and put that back out there immediately. The other ones that have already submitted to underwriting, I'm confident to let that continue through the process. But these 3, at this point, I would say, no. If you haven't done it after 6 months, I know that wasn't part of the initial process, but the initial process was you're ready to go. When you do this, you're ready to go. So I don't know how the rest of the board feels. I would be fine to give them a 30 days at this point. If you can't submit by then, it's over. Taking this all the way into March, we probably will be ready to issue a new round of bond dollars by then. So I'm not sure what's the point of tying this up for another 4 months. You're giving them almost a year to get to underwriting. I don't like that. So those 3, if you haven't done it, I say you're done. The other 3, I'm confident to let them continue through the process. My opinion.
Thank you. Commissioner Weiss.
Mayor Marino?
Yes, Commissioner Sachs, would you like to speak?
Yeah, just put me on the end of the list. I can't see the other commissioner, but I'd like to be heard at the very end.
All right, Commissioner Weiss has his light on, and then I will call on you.
So a couple things. I'm willing to support going to March on this. This is our first time through this, and they're interesting projects, so I'm willing to do that. And in relation to Commissioner Flores, maybe one of the things that we look to do is, which we could have done on this one as well, we could have taken dollars out of our reserves and then replaced them with bond dollars to come back in, so we didn't have to issue the bonds right away and carry that interest until we had deals that actually could take those dollars. So maybe that's a way to look at it in the future, that we can use that for our own gap financing, so we don't issue $100 million until we have $100 million bonded out.
Thank you. Commissioner Sachs.
Thank you, Mayor Marino. I agree with the reasoning of Commissioner Woodward. I think that if they haven't come forward up to now, that we need to put them to the side and move forward on those that have. that's fine with me. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we have one card.
Brian Finney.
Good afternoon. Still afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Brian Finney. I'm Senior Vice President of the Housing Trust Group, and I, along with the Housing Authority, are partners on two transactions that you're discussing here today. Drexel and Union Baptist, which are two transactions that have not gone underwriting, but will be submitted shortly. But what I would like to say, with the utmost respect, is when we submitted our applications according to the guidelines, we had to be shovel-ready. We submitted applications that were fully funded and shovel-ready. In those applications, the financing was reduced by 65% of what we applied for from the county. So as a result, we had to restructure those projects. Restructuring projects means going to all of our banks, restructuring the deals, going back to our pro forma and saying, with this amount of money, how many units can we afford to build? We went through a process, and in aggregate, we're ending up with 313 units between Drexel and Union. We have a $130 million project. And at this point in time, as per the documentations I just submitted to your staff, Union Baptist is ready to proceed to underwriting. We had one letter that was outstanding, which was updated by David Brandt yesterday, and that was submitted to staff yesterday, so we're ready to go. But what I'd also like to mention is that while the goalpost was changed for us and we had to recalibrate, the board specifically told us to apply for Live Local. There was a representative here who spoke to you and indicated to you that there was $150 million in Live Local and we should apply for Live Local for those funds. Although we did not just wait for Live Local, we looked for other sources. The Live Local applications are not due until December 20th of this year. We've done exactly what she wanted us to do. We've raised more bank money on Union Baptist. The Housing Authority has provided us vouchers. We went back and took those vouchers and increased our bank loan from $8 million to $19 million to help address the gap that was created by the change in the financial structure that was put on us. In Drexel, we got a modification to the revenues of the bonds that were about to be issued where, I gotta stop. Okay, where our initial allocation, let's say hypothetically, was $1 per bond issuance. Now it was adjusted to $1.30 per bond issuance. That helped close the gap. We changed the structure. We had to relocate seniors from off-site, pay for that, and then relocate them back once the building was done. We changed our design plans so we could build the structures simultaneously on the site and not have to relocate seniors. So we've done things to make our deal underwritable, but stay within the guidelines that you presented to us. So I ask you, and I beg you, this is work. On top of the fact that I've spent $50,000 in studies, in architectural fees, in order to get ready for what you're asking us to do. And I followed your direction, so please, we're comfortable with the staff's recommendation of March, but I want to let you know that all of us have been working diligently to develop affordable housing, to build 300 units at 80% and below, most of which are for 30% income ranges for seniors, and I guess I have to leave. But please, we've done our jobs as per your direction, and we would hope that you continue on the path that you've dictated that we follow. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Commissioner Flores, your light is on again. Or did you not turn it off?
I do wanna. So can we clarify
What the motion
what
is?
happens after, what do we say, March 11th?
Yes, sir.
To these projects that have not gone to underwriting? Because I like the project. It was conceptually approved before, but I am not in agreement with tying up money that we're paying interest in a project that hasn't moved to underwriting. But I don't want that project to go off and die, because they have invested money, they have invested resources. It's a project that conceptually has been approved. So how do we keep them in the game, but be able to reallocate the dollars elsewhere?
So when the RFPs open again, the developers that have received conceptual approval that haven't moved forward, or even new developers, will be able to compete again for the new round of funding.
So they would have to, once again, reapply, submit?
Yes, sir.
And for clarification on Isaiah, one of the projects he, I think, called Union Baptist, we did receive the letter from the Housing Finance Authority yesterday.
Keep talking to the mic,
And
Sherry.
it will be submitted to underwriting. So that one is actually ready to go.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Woodward, your light is on.
Thank you, Mayor. And I know that what the board is recommending is to go to March, and it seems like, I guess the rest are in agreement with this. I would like to know, the March deadline that we're talking about doesn't mean to submit to underwriting. That means that they need to be submitting pretty quickly, and then it would be coming back to us for final approval.
Yes.
But that final approval is on a number of, well, actually, no, because we did Lake Worth today. So how, it's just all of the ones that are showing awaiting in
Yes,
that
ma'am.
category right now.
The three that are in underwriting and the three that have not yet been submitted to underwriting, those 6 projects would need to be on your March 11th agenda for final approval in order to retain its conceptual approval.
And the Marina Village, since we voted, that would be looking for the alternative using HIP funding. That one has now been, that money's been freed up from the bond
Yes,
as
ma'am.
well. And Gallery, we just denied. Okay. So by March, we are expecting to have all of these either through final approval or then it's a reset for any of the projects that would still be outstanding.
That's staff's recommendation.
Doesn't mean that they can't apply for the next round also, right? There's
Yes,
not like
ma'am.
a denial where you have to go away for a long time.
They can
Okay.
apply again in March or April.
Well, I mean, I would support allowing these to continue, but when we have our discussion in the workshop, I'm assuming that we will be looking at putting tighter timelines. This was our first round, and I agree, like, we've had to make changes on this as we get into the weeds on some of these numbers. And I apologize for those who have had to work through this with us. But in the next workshop, I think that this board will be very ready for that discussion and to put, stricter timelines on some of this so that we've learned from what we've experienced so far.
Yes, ma'am.
Staff is already in discussions that we would put a 6-month deadline to get to underwriting for future projects if the board agrees when we do the next round.
Thank you. Commissioner, Vice Mayor Baxter.
My question was answered, sorry.
No problem. All right, I have no more lights on. Did we get a motion in a second? Can't remember back that far. Can the clerk let us know if we had a motion in a second?
I have a motion by Vice Mayor Baxter, a second by Commissioner Woodward.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Commissioner Sachs? So we have.
Aye. Can you hear me now?
Yep, okay, so we have.
Okay, I'm in.
All right, 7-0. And I had promised the board that after those two topics, we would take a lunch break of an hour. Would that be okay with the board?
Yes.
And then we will come back and we will finish the agenda. So let's all be back here at 1:30.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
I know, seriously.
Good day.